Mark Walker's home office smells like money and fear. It's a peculiar combination, the leather and cedar notes of wealth mixing with the sour undercurrent of a man who hasn't been sleeping. I've developed a nose for it over the years. When the wealthy get scared, they call people like me, and their panic has a particular scent, like expensive cologne that's turned. Walker sits behind a desk that probably costs more than my car. The surface is empty except for a laptop, a single folder, and 2 tumblers of amber liquid he poured when I arrived. He hasn't touched his. Mine sits untouched, too, a rule I never break on first meetings. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Hunt," he says. His voice is soft but precise, like someone used to being listened to without having to raise it. "Your reputation precedes you." "Just Riley is fine," I tell him, easing into the chair opposite his desk. My knee gives its usual complaint, an old injury from another life. And reputations are usually exaggerated. Walker doesn't smile. He's thin, pale in a way that suggests he spends most of his time indoors, bathed in the blue light of screens. His clothes are expensive but understated, the kind of wealth that doesn't need to announce itself. His fingers tap an irregular rhythm on the folder. "What exactly did you hear about me?" I ask. "That you're discreet. That you specialize in marital situations, and that you were a detective before going private." I nod. "Arizona PD, that was a while ago." "Why did you leave?" My turn to not smile. "Let's focus on why I'm here, Mr. Walker." He studies me for a moment, then reaches for the folder. His hands tremble slightly. Not fear, I think, but the jittery energy of someone whose mind moves faster than his body can keep up with. "It's my wife, Elena." He slides the folder toward me. "These are bills from a clinic in Zurich. She's been going there for treatments." I open the folder. Inside are neatly arranged medical invoices, plane tickets, hotel confirmations, everything organized with almost painful precision. "What kind of treatments?" "That's just it." Walker leans forward, his voice dropping. "She says it's for hormone therapy, early menopause symptoms, but the costs." He points to figures on the invoices. "These amounts don't match any treatment protocols I've researched, and she goes every 6 weeks, like clockwork." I flip through the papers. The clinic's letterhead is elegant, discreet. The invoices vague in that particular way that suggests privacy is their primary service. "How long has this been going on?" 8 months. "And what changed 8 months ago?" Walker blinks, surprised by the question. "Nothing specific. We had just returned from a business trip to Geneva. I was launching a new security platform there." "You're in tech, correct?" "Yes. I built a cybersecurity company from nothing. Sold it 3 years ago." I nod, filing that away. "Tell me about your marriage." His eyes dart to the window, where night presses against the glass. "We've been married 6 years. Elena is my second chance. I was married to my work for decades." He runs a hand through his thinning hair. "We met at a charity gala. She was working for a non-profit. I'd never met anyone like her." The familiar story of a successful man dazzled by youth and beauty. I've heard a dozen variations in this job alone. "Any children?" "No, Elena said she didn't want them. I already have grown children from a brief marriage in my 20s. "When did you first notice something was wrong?" Walker's face tightens. 4 months ago. Elena started taking private calls, stepping outside or into another room. Her schedule became erratic, except for these Swiss trips, which are sacred." He laughs, a hollow sound. "She's also withdrawn large sums from our joint account. When I asked about it, she said it was for the treatments and charity donations." You didn't believe her? I wanted to. His fingers curl around the untouched tumbler. Then last month, I found a second phone in her travel bag. She was furious when she caught me looking at it, said it was for international calls to avoid roaming charges. And I built a tech company that specialized in digital security, Mr. Hunt. His eyes meet mine, suddenly sharp. I know when someone is covering their tracks. I lean back, studying him. What exactly do you suspect, Mr. Walker? I don't know, he says, but his voice lacks conviction. An affair, maybe. But why the elaborate medical cover and the money? It's too much for just hotel rooms and champagne. I pull out a small notebook from my jacket pocket, make a few notes. Have you noticed any other changes? Physical, emotional? She's more confident, distant. Sometimes she looks at me like... He stops, swallows. Like I'm a stranger she's assessing. I nod, writing that down. The clinic. Have you contacted them directly? They won't release any information due to patient confidentiality. And you've never accompanied her on these trips? She's always had a reason why I shouldn't. Work commitments she arranged for me, family emergencies on my side that she encouraged me to attend to. He gives a bitter smile. Looking back, it was masterfully done. I return to the invoices, noting the dates, the amounts. Something doesn't add up, but I need more information before I can identify what. Mr. Walker, what exactly do you want from me? He takes a deep breath. I want you to follow her to Zurich on her next trip. Find out what's really happening at this clinic, who she's meeting, where the money is going. He finally takes a sip of his drink. Her flight leaves tomorrow night. I raise an eyebrow. That's not much time for preparation. I'll triple your usual rate. His voice is steady now, plus all expenses. I close the folder, tuck it under my arm. I'll need access to your financial records, credit card statements, bank transfers. Of course. He opens his laptop, taps a few keys. I've prepared a secure link with everything organized. I'll email it to you tonight. You've thought this through. I've had months of sleepless nights to think it through, Mr. Hunt. He stands, extending his hand. Will you take the case? I rise, my knee protesting again. His hand is cold when I shake it, but his grip is firm. I'll find out what's happening in Zurich, I tell him, but you should prepare yourself, Mr. Walker. The truth isn't always what we want to hear. I stopped wanting things a long time ago, Mr. Hunt. He walks me to the door. Now I just need to know. As I leave, I glance back at his silhouette in the doorway, a thin man in an expensive suit framed by the warm light of an empty home. Whatever Elena Walker is doing in Switzerland, it's costing her husband more than money. And something tells me the price will only get higher. My office has all the charm of a forgotten storage room. One window that looks at a brick wall, a desk I bought at a police auction, and filing cabinets that groan like old men when opened. But it's mine, paid for with years of watching people's worst moments through a camera lens. I spread Walker's documents across the desk, steam rising from my third cup of coffee. Morning light cuts weak rectangles on the floor as I begin the familiar ritual of following the money. The secure link Walker sent last night contained enough financial records to keep an accountant busy for a month. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, all meticulously organized, labeled, and highlighted. The man might be heartbroken, but his files are immaculate. I pull out my notebook, flip to a fresh page, start a timeline with Elena's Swiss trips marked in red. 8 months of regular visits, each lasting 4 days. Clockwork, just like Walker said. Beside each date, I note the corresponding clinic charges, between $15,000 and $20,000 per visit. Medical care in Switzerland doesn't come cheap, But these numbers still raise my eyebrows. My coffee goes cold as I dig deeper. The clinic's name, Helvetica Wellness Institute, appears on official statements, but something's not adding up. I pull out my phone, search for information. Their website is a masterpiece of saying nothing with many words. Discrete therapeutic services, personalized wellness protocols. Confidentiality is our cornerstone. Not a single specific treatment mentioned, no doctor profiles, no patient testimonials, just alpine landscapes and soft focus images of people looking serenely healthy. I return to the bank statements, tracking Elena's spending patterns. The regular withdrawals Walker mentioned, 5,000 here, 7,000 there, always happen within days of returning from Switzerland. Cash, untraceable. My pencil taps against the page as I notice something else. There's a second set of payments. They're buried in the statements, labeled as investment consultancy fees to something called Alpenblick Partners. The amounts vary, but they average around $30,000 every 2 months. I check the dates against my timeline. Each payment falls exactly 2 weeks after Elena's clinic visits. Clever, I mutter to the empty office. Very clever. I search for Alpenblick Partners online. It exists, technically, a financial advisory firm in Zurich with a minimal web presence and an address in the banking district. No client list, no advisor profiles, just a discreet logo and a contact form. The digital equivalent of a closed door with a peephole. My old instincts hum like a tuning fork. This isn't just about medical treatments or even a simple affair. The money trail is too deliberate, too structured. Whatever Elena Walker is doing in Switzerland involves significant funds moving in specific patterns. I reach for the credit card statements next. Elena's personal card shows the expected patterns: high-end shopping, restaurants, spa treatments, the kind of spending wealthy spouses rarely question. But there's a corporate card in her name, too, ostensibly for her charity work. The charges are less frequent, but more interesting. Business-class upgrades beyond what Walker was paying for, charges at restaurants and hotels on days she was supposedly at the clinic, and several payments to a luxury car service in Zurich. I pull up the clinic's address, then map the locations of these restaurants and hotels. None are within walking distance of Helvetica Wellness. Some are in the financial district, near Alpenblick Partners. My back aches as I straighten up, stretching arms that have gone stiff from hunching over papers. The windows shows it's past noon now, the weak morning light replaced by the flat gray of a cloudy day. I've been at this for hours, the quiet intensity of the hunt making time irrelevant. There's a pattern here, more deliberate than most cases I handle. Elena Walker isn't just sneaking off for an affair or hiding a medical condition from her husband. She's systematically moving money and creating alibis. The question is why? I turn to Walker's personal accounts, looking for context. His financial picture is complicated. Multiple investment accounts, retirement funds, business holdings, but remarkably stable. Regular income from his company sale, prudent investments, no suspicious outflows. Whatever's happening, Walker himself appears clean. One final document catches my attention, their prenuptial agreement. Walker included it in the files without my asking, which tells me something about his state of mind. The terms are straightforward but generous. In case of divorce, Elena gets a settlement based on years of marriage, currently around $3 million. Not pocket change, but a fraction of Walker's net worth. Unless she can prove infidelity on his part, then the settlement triples. I close the file, lean back in my chair that protests with a squeak. The picture forming in my mind is ugly but coherent. I reach for my phone, dial Walker's number. He answers on the first ring. "Hunt, what have you found?" His voice is tight, controlled. The voice of a man bracing for impact. "Your financial records are interesting reading," I say, keeping my tone neutral. "There's a second set of payments going to a firm called Alpenblick Partners after each of your wife's clinic visits. About $30,000 each time." A sharp intake of breath. "I didn't know about those." "They're well disguised, and there's more. Evidence she's not spending all her time at the clinic. She's meeting someone or multiple someones." Silence on the line. Then, "So I was right." "Mr. Walker," I say, watching dust motes dance in the thin shaft of light from my window, "I think you're right that something's off. But this doesn't look like a simple affair. The pattern is too organized, too financial in nature." "What do you mean?" "I'm not sure yet." I flip my notebook closed, "But I'm going to follow her to Zurich as planned. I need to see who she's meeting, what she's doing when she's supposedly getting treatments." "You'll keep me updated?" "As much as possible." I pause, choosing my next words carefully. "Mr. Walker, have you considered that this might be about more than your marriage? The sums involved, the structured nature of the payments." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything yet, just preparing you that this might be bigger than we initially thought." Another long silence. "Just find out the truth, Hunt, whatever it is." "I'll call you from Zurich," I say, and end the call. I sit there for a moment, staring at the spread of documents that tell a story of deception, but not yet its purpose. My gut tells me this case is about to take me places I haven't been before, and not just geographically. I begin packing for Switzerland, the pieces of the puzzle tumbling in my mind like locks in a safe I haven't quite cracked. Yet. Zurich Airport gleams like wealth made solid, all glass, steel, and efficiency, with none of the desperation that hangs in American terminals. I nurse an overpriced coffee near the international arrivals gate, hidden behind a newspaper I can't read. My camera sits ready in my lap, lens cap off, waiting. When Eleanor Walker emerges through the frosted glass doors, I almost miss her. In person, she moves differently than in the photographs Mark showed me. More purposeful, her chin higher, like someone who knows exactly where she's going and what she'll find there. She's striking rather than beautiful, tall, elegant, with dark hair cut in a severe bob that emphasizes her cheekbones. Her clothes are expensive but subdued, a charcoal pantsuit, cream silk blouse, and a camel coat draped over her arm. Not a woman who needs to announce herself. The world simply adjusts to accommodate her presence. Elena collects her single carry-on bag and moves toward the exit without hesitation. No jet lag, no disorientation. She's done this many times before. I snap a few discreet photos, then fold my newspaper and follow at a careful distance. Outside, she slides into a waiting black Mercedes. Not a taxi, but a private car with a driver who greets her by name. I flag down a taxi 2 vehicles behind, instructing the driver to follow without being obvious. He gives me a look that says this isn't his first surveillance job. Zurich unfolds around us like a pop-up book of money. Pristine streets, medieval architecture nestled against modern glass structures, the lake a perfect blue backdrop. Everything seems scrubbed, polished, discreet. A city designed to keep secrets safe behind numbered accounts and private dining rooms. "First time in Switzerland?" my driver asks in accented English. "That obvious?" He chuckles. "Americans always look up too much. The buildings, yes? In Zurich, the real story is at eye level." We follow Elena's car into a residential district of imposing stone buildings and manicured gardens. The Helvetica Wellness Institute sits on a corner lot, understated but unmistakably exclusive. No signage except a small brass plaque. windows tinted for privacy, a single discreet entrance with a security camera. Elena's car stops at the front. She steps out, exchanges words with the driver, then disappears inside the building. "Wait here," I tell my driver, handing him enough Swiss francs to ensure compliance. I find a cafe across the street with a view of the clinic entrance. Order another coffee I don't want and a pastry I don't touch. Set up my surveillance, camera ready, notebook open. The clinic's comings and goings are minimal. The occasional well-dressed client, staff in understated uniforms. No emergency vehicles, no obvious medical equipment deliveries. It could be a boutique hotel or an exclusive law firm rather than a medical facility. 3 hours pass. My coffee goes cold. I make notes about everyone who enters or exits, but none seem connected to Elena. According to Walker's information, she typically spends the entire day at the clinic during her first day in Zurich. I settle in for the long haul. Then, unexpectedly, the clinic door opens and Elena emerges. I straighten in my seat, camera ready. She's changed clothes, now in a deep blue dress that hugs her figure, hair freshly styled, makeup impeccable. Nothing about her suggests a woman who's spent hours receiving medical treatments. She looks like someone dressed for a business meeting or a date. She checks her watch, then walks briskly down the street rather than returning to her waiting car. I leave cash on the table and follow, keeping to the opposite side of the street, camera concealed inside my jacket. Elena moves with confidence through the winding streets, eventually leading me to the banking district. Glass towers rise like expensive sentinels, housing wealth beyond imagination. She enters one of the smaller, more classical buildings, and I note the address, the same one listed for Alpenblick Partners in Walker's records. I find another cafe, Zurich seems to have one on every corner, and position myself where I can watch the entrance. She stays inside for 45 minutes. When she emerges, she's carrying a slim leather portfolio that she didn't have before. The sun begins its descent as Elena hails a taxi. I do the same, instructing my driver to maintain distance. We head away from the financial district toward a residential area of old money and lake views. The taxi stops outside a restaurant set back from the road, partially hidden by ancient trees. Le Cerf d'Or, reads the discreet gold lettering. Very exclusive, my driver comments. Reservation only, very private. I pay him, then find a bench across the street with a clear view of the entrance. The restaurant is housed in what appears to be a converted mansion, with garden walls and security cameras. Through the wrought-iron gates, I glimpse a courtyard with a fountain. Elena walks through the gates with the easy confidence of a regular. 30 minutes later, a black Bentley pulls up. The man who steps out moves with the casual arrogance of old money, tall, well-groomed in his late 40s, wearing a suit that probably costs more than my monthly rent. Dark hair with distinguished touches of gray at the temples, a heavy watch glinting on his wrist. He straightens his cuffs before entering, a habitual gesture of a man accustomed to being observed. I snap several photos as he passes through the gates. Something about his bearing suggests danger beneath the polished exterior. A predator in bespoke clothing. The restaurant's design makes surveillance difficult. I circle the perimeter, looking for angles, and eventually find a side street with a partial view of a private dining terrace through the trees. I set up with my camera, using the zoom lens to close the distance. Through the foliage, I capture glimpses of Elena and the mystery man seated at a corner table. Their body language speaks volumes, leaning toward each other, hands occasionally touching. Not the stiffness of a business meeting, but not quite the abandon of lovers either. Something in between, co-conspirators perhaps. The man opens a bottle of champagne. They toast. Elena slides the portfolio across the table. He reviews its contents, nodding occasionally, his expression giving nothing away. They speak intensely, heads close together. At one point, he laughs at something she says, and his hand covers hers for longer than necessary. I take photos continuously, documenting every interaction. When the waiter approaches, they separate slightly, becoming more formal. The portfolio disappears into the man's briefcase. After dinner, they walk together through the garden. I reposition, finding an angle through decorative ironwork. The man's hand rests on the small of Elena's back, a gesture both possessive and familiar. She tilts her face up to his, saying something that makes him smile. Then, unexpectedly, she glances toward the street, a habitual security check that marks her as more than just a cheating wife. I pull back instinctively, though I'm well concealed. When I look again, Elena is scanning the perimeter with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to being watched. The man notices her distraction and becomes alert himself, his posture shifting subtly into something more vigilant. They separate at the garden gate. No kiss, no obvious farewell, just a brief exchange of words and a lingering look. The man returns to his Bentley. Elena walks to the street and hails a taxi. I stay hidden until they're both gone, then check my camera's display. The images are clear enough. Elena Walker and her mystery man sharing champagne and secrets in a restaurant where discretion is guaranteed. Whatever she's doing in Zurich, it isn't hormone therapy. As darkness settles over the city, I make my way back to my hotel, the weight of my camera heavy with new questions. The game is more complex than Mark Walker imagined, and I've only seen the first move. Night transforms Zurich's wealth from gleaming to glowing. The streetlights cast halos in the mist rising from the lake. The old buildings hunker down like sleeping giants made of money. I've positioned myself in the shadows across from Le Cerf d'Or, a restaurant that doesn't advertise and doesn't need to. My camera's night lens is worth every penny I paid for it. German engineering that cuts through darkness like it's just another inconvenience for the wealthy to overcome. The weight of it is reassuring in my hands, a constant in a city where I'm the only thing that doesn't belong. The restaurant occupies a 19th-century mansion set back from the street, its grounds protected by walls and discreet security. Earlier, surveillance revealed 3 exits, 2 security guards who move with the practiced ease of ex-military, and a clientele that arrives exclusively in luxury vehicles or chauffeur-driven cars. No tourists, no walk-ins, no one who hasn't been carefully vetted. I check my watch. Elena and her companion have been inside for nearly 2 hours. My earlier position gave me only glimpses. Now I need something more substantial. Clear images of documents changing hands, conversations close enough to read lips, evidence that will stand up to scrutiny. A service alley runs behind the restaurant, bordered by immaculately maintained hedges. I make my way there, keeping to the shadows. The kitchen entrance is busy, with staff moving efficiently, the occasional burst of light and noise quickly contained. 20 meters to the left, a terrace extends from what must be a private dining room. The voices of the wealthy carry through the night air, a blend of German, French, and English, the international language of money. I find a gap in the hedge that offers a sightline to the terrace. Elena and her companion sit at a corner table, partially obscured by a heat lamp. The man's back is to me, but I have a clear view of Elena's face, illuminated by candlelight. Her expression is animated in a way I haven't seen before, sharp, engaged, almost predatory. She speaks rapidly, leaning forward, her hands occasionally gesturing to emphasize points. The man nods, his shoulders relaxed but attentive. My camera's microphone picks up fragments of conversation, but the distance and ambient noise make it difficult to piece together. Transfer schedule must be adjusted. Elena says. The man responds in what sounds like German, then switches to English. Not sustainable at current levels without... Klaus, we discussed this, Elena cuts in, her tone cooling. The arrangements are already in place. Klaus, a name to go with the expensive suit. I snap a series of photos as he turns slightly, offering a partial profile. Strong jaw, aquiline nose, the confident posture of someone accustomed to getting his way. He reaches for his wine glass, and I catch the glint of a distinctive signet ring. Their conversation shifts to French, which Elena speaks with surprising fluency. I catch mentions of accounts, transfers, and what sounds like offshore arrangements. Whatever their relationship, it's not just romantic. There's business happening at this table, serious business involving significant money. A waiter approaches with dessert. Their conversation pauses, resuming only after he's gone. Elena reaches into her handbag and removes the leather portfolio I saw her carrying earlier. She slides it across the table with deliberate casualness, her fingers lingering on it a moment too long. Klaus opens it, angling the contents away from potential observers. A practiced movement that tells me he's accustomed to discretion. His body language changes as he reviews the documents inside, a slight stiffening of his shoulders, a tilt of his head that suggests both approval and surprise. "This is more than we discussed," he says, loud enough for me to hear clearly. Elena smiles, takes a sip of her wine. "Consider it an investment in our continued partnership." Klaus closes the portfolio, taps his fingers on it thoughtfully. "And Mark suspects nothing?" "Mark sees what he expects to see," Elena replies, her voice carrying a note of dismissal. "A wife with medical issues, a marriage that's grown comfortably distant." I adjust my position for a better angle, needing to capture Klaus's face clearly. My shoe dislodges a small stone that skitters across the pavement. I freeze, but neither of them appears to notice. Klaus says something too low to catch, then laughs. A sound without warmth. He reaches across the table and takes Elena's hand, his thumb caressing her wrist in a gesture that's both intimate and somehow calculating. "2 more transfers," he says. "Then we move to phase 2. Elena nods, her expression hardening into something that would shock her husband if he could see it. Determined, cold, entirely in control. "I've prepared everything. The timing must be precise." "It always is with you," Klaus replies, a hint of admiration in his voice. He slips the portfolio into an expensive leather briefcase beside his chair. I snap several photos of the exchange, the camera's soft click barely audible over the ambient restaurant noise. Their dessert arrives, something chocolate and elaborate that they barely touch. Their conversation shifts to lighter topics, but with an undercurrent of tension that suggests the real business is concluded. Klaus signals for the check, which he pays with a black card that disappears and reappears with efficient discretion. I need one clear shot of his face. As they prepare to leave, I shift position again, moving closer to the terrace edge where the lighting is better. I raise my camera, focus on Klaus as he stands and turns toward the light. He's handsome in the cold, precise way of European banking, features that would look at home on a Swiss franc. I capture several clear images before he turns away. They move toward the restaurant's interior. I begin to retreat, then pause as Elena unexpectedly returns to the terrace alone. She stands at the railing, gazing out into the darkness where I'm hidden. Something in her posture suggests she's not just admiring the view, she's scanning, searching. I press myself deeper into the shadows, barely breathing. Elena remains still, her eyes moving methodically across the garden and beyond. A predator sensing something amiss in her territory. A waiter appears at the terrace doorway. Madame, your car is ready. Elena doesn't respond immediately. Her gaze stops near my position, lingering for a heartbeat too long. I don't move, don't breathe. Finally, she turns away, but not before I catch the slight narrowing of her eyes, the look of someone filing away a suspicion for later examination. I wait 5 full minutes after she's gone before I move, my heart pounding against my ribs. The night has turned cold, or perhaps it's just the adrenaline fading. I check my camera. The images are clear, damning. Elena Walker passing documents to a man named Klaus, discussing transfers and phases, speaking about her husband with casual contempt. As I make my way back through the quiet streets, I sense I've crossed a threshold. This isn't just about a cheating spouse anymore. The sums involved, the careful secrecy, the mention of phases, it all suggests something larger, more elaborate, something dangerous. Back at my hotel, I lock the door and check it twice. Draw the curtains, upload the photos to an encrypted cloud drive. Only then do I pour myself a drink from the minibar, letting the mediocre scotch burn away the chill that settled in my bones when Elena looked toward my hiding place. Sleep doesn't come easily. When it does, I dream of predators circling in the dark, sensing weakness. The cafe sits on a narrow street away from Zurich's financial district, the kind of place bankers wouldn't be caught dead in. Too small, too ordinary, too full of people who earn their money instead of moving it. Perfect for my purposes. I nurse an espresso that could strip paint, watching the door through the steam. The message came to my hotel this morning. A note slipped under my door with this address, a time, and a single line. I know what they're doing. No signature, but the hotel stationery suggests someone with access. I arrived an hour early, checked for surveillance, selected a table with a view of both exits. Old habits from a previous life. She arrives precisely on time, pausing at the doorway to scan the room. Brown hair pulled back in a practical knot, wire-rimmed glasses, a beige trench coat that seems one size too large. She clutches her handbag like it contains state secrets. Maybe it does. Her eyes find mine, a silent question. I nod once and she makes her way to my table, movements stiff with tension. Mr. Hunt? Her voice is soft, accented but precise. You have me at a disadvantage, I reply, gesturing to the chair opposite mine. She sits, places her bag on her lap rather than the floor. Anna Mueller. She doesn't offer her hand. I work at Berger Private Banking. Interesting. I keep my expression neutral. And how did you find me, Ms. Mueller? Her eyes dart to the window, then back. You are staying at Hotel Adler. It's where the bank puts up clients who don't want their names in larger hotels. A faint flush colors her cheeks. I saw you in the lobby yesterday. Later, I heard Mr. Berger mention an American asking questions. It wasn't difficult to connect. I signal the waiter, order another espresso for myself and a tea for Anna without asking. She doesn't object. You're taking a risk contacting me, I say once the waiter leaves. Yes. Her fingers worry at a paper napkin, methodically tearing small pieces. But what they're doing, it isn't right. They being Mr. Berger and the woman, Elena Walker. She says the name like it tastes bitter. I assist with certain accounts, special clients. Our drinks arrive. Anna wraps her hands around the teacup but doesn't drink, as if she just needs something to hold. Tell me about these special accounts, I say. Anna glances over her shoulder, lowers her voice. They're structured to move money without detection. Multiple shell companies, offshore entities, accounts that exist for a single transaction before dissolving. She takes a shallow breath. I'm an assistant. I process the paperwork, but I see the patterns. And what pattern are you seeing with Elena Walker? She's helping move money, large amounts. Anna's knuckles go white around her cup. At first I thought it was just tax avoidance. Many clients do this, but the amounts are increasing and the security protocols are, she searches for the word, extreme. I lean forward slightly. How much money are we talking about? Millions. So far, at least $15 million has moved through the structures they've created, but it's accelerating. She finally takes a sip of tea, a quick, nervous gesture. Last month, it was $3 million in a single transfer. Where is the money coming from? Various sources. Some appears legitimate. Investment accounts, business holdings, but others, she hesitates, others appear suddenly from entities that didn't exist weeks before. Clean money mixed with... She doesn't finish the thought. I take a slow sip of my espresso, giving her space to continue or retreat. She chooses to continue. Mr. Berger specializes in certain clients, wealthy individuals who need discretion. Some are simply private. Others have reasons to hide their wealth. Her voice drops further. Political figures from countries with unrest. Business people with connections to industries that attract attention. You're saying he launders money? Anna flinches at the bluntness. The bank would call it wealth structuring for privacy-conscious clients. And Elena Walker's role in this? She brings clients, makes introductions. Anna's eyes meet mine directly for the first time. But with her own accounts, it's different. More personal, Mr. Berger handles everything himself. They're involved? A small, tight nod. It's not discussed, but everyone knows. She comes to his office after hours. They take private lunches. Her mouth twists. He's married with children, but that doesn't matter to people like them. I make a note in my book. And her husband, Mark Walker? I've never met him. His name appears on some of the original documentation, but he doesn't seem involved in the ongoing activities. Anna hesitates. There's something else. The clinic she visits, Helvetica Wellness. What about it? It's not just a clinic. The building houses several businesses. One floor is registered to a company called Artemis Holdings. She leans closer. Artemis Holdings appears in our transfer documents. It's part of the structure they're using. The pieces click together. The clinic visits providing cover for financial meetings, the portfolio changing hands, the conversations about transfers and phases. Ms. Muller, why are you telling me this? Her expression shifts, vulnerability breaking through the professional facade. I came to Zurich for a legitimate banking career. My family in Germany was so proud. Her voice wavers. What Mr. Berger is doing, I'm implicated now. I've processed the documents, entered the data. She swallows hard. But recently the patterns have changed. The security is tighter. Mr. Berger seems concerned about something. And the destinations for some transfers. What about them? Countries with no extradition treaties. Tax havens with absolute privacy laws. She reaches into her bag, hands trembling slightly. I made copies of key documents, transaction records, entity structures, account details. She slides a small flash drive across the table. It's encrypted. The password is Artemis 2023. I pocket the drive. This is significant evidence, Ms. Muller. Have you considered going to the authorities? Fear flashes across her face. Swiss banking laws. I would be prosecuted first. And Mr. Berger has connections everywhere in Zurich. She glances at the window again, then stiffens. The blue car across the street. It's been there too long. I don't turn to look. Is it someone you recognize? I can't tell. She stands abruptly, gathering her things. I've said too much already. Don't contact me directly. If I learn more, I'll find a way to reach you. Anna, I say quietly, be careful. People who move this kind of money don't appreciate scrutiny. Her smile is brittle. Why do you think I'm helping you? The longer this continues, the more dangerous my position becomes. She adjusts her bag on her shoulder. Look closely at the Artemis Holdings documents. The ownership structure is surprising. Before I can ask more, she's moving toward the door, her posture rigid with barely contained panic. At the threshold, she pauses, glances back at me. Whatever you think this is, Mr. Hunt, it's bigger. Then she's gone, swallowed by the stream of pedestrians outside. I remain seated, not rushing to follow. The flash drive weighs in my pocket like a live grenade. Anna Mueller has just handed me enough information to potentially unravel whatever Elena Walker and Klaus Berger are building. The question is whether I can use it before they realize their operation is compromised. Outside, the blue car pulls away from the curb. Coincidence, perhaps, but in my experience, coincidences cost more than most people can afford. Mark Walker's hotel suite could swallow my entire apartment and still have room for dessert. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame Zurich like an expensive painting, the lake glittering in the distance. Walker stands at the window, a silhouette against the view, so still he might be part of the furnishings. When he turns at my knock, his face has the tight, drawn quality of a man who's been rehearsing questions he's afraid to ask. He gestures me in without a word, moving to a sideboard where 2 crystal tumblers wait beside an unopened bottle of scotch. His hands are steady as he breaks the seal and pours. Mine are steady as I accept the glass. Neither of us drinks. "Tell me," he says finally. No preamble, no small talk. His voice sounds weathered, like he's aged years since I saw him in his home office. "You should sit down," I suggest. He shakes his head, one sharp movement. "Just tell me, Hunt, is she having an affair?" I take a measured breath. "Yes, but that's the least of it." Walker's fingers tighten around his glass, but his expression barely changes. Just a slight hardening around the eyes, as if he's received confirmation of something he already knew. He moves to an elegant sofa and sits on the edge, waiting. I remain standing, organizing my thoughts. There's no gentle way to dismantle someone's life. "Your wife isn't coming to Switzerland for medical treatments," I begin. "The clinic is a front, or at least she's using it as one. She meets with a private banker named Klaus Berger. They're involved romantically, but their relationship appears to be primarily business." "What kind of business?" Walker's voice is controlled, too controlled. "Financial engineering, complex fund transfers, shell companies, offshore accounts." I take a small sip of the scotch, let the burn clear my throat. "Based on what I've observed and information from a source at Berger's bank, they're moving large sums of money through elaborate structures designed to hide the source and destination." Walker stares at his untouched drink. "Money laundering." "Essentially, yes. At least 15 million so far, according to my source, and accelerating." Now he drinks, a single swallow. "Where is the money coming from?" "That's unclear. Some appears legitimate, possibly from your accounts or businesses. Other funds materialize from temporary entities that exist just long enough to transfer money into the system." Walker stands abruptly, moves back to the window. The light catches his profile, the sharp angles of a face that's forgotten how to relax. "You have proof?" he asks, still facing the view. I set my glass down, retrieve my camera and the flash drive from my jacket. "Photos of Elena meeting with Berger, exchanging documents, and this drive contains banking records, transaction histories, corporate structures." My source says you'll find the name Artemis Holdings particularly interesting. Walker turns, eyeing the drive like it might bite. Your source? An assistant at Berger's bank, young woman named Anna Muller. Nervous, but seemingly reliable. She's worried about her involvement in whatever they are building. He takes the drive, turns it over in his fingers. His movements become more precise, focused, a subtle shift in demeanor that catches my attention. I need to see what's on this, he says, moving to a sleek laptop on the desk. He plugs in the drive, enters the password I provide, then begins scanning files with a speed and comprehension that speaks to more than casual technical knowledge. I watch him work, noting the transformation. The hesitant, wounded husband has vanished, replaced by someone who navigates complex financial data with practiced ease. His fingers fly across the keyboard, opening files, scanning content, occasionally muttering to himself. You said you built a cybersecurity company, I remark. That seems to have involved more than just management skills. Walker doesn't look up. I was a hacker before it was a career path. Started breaking into systems when I was 14, turned it legitimate when the alternatives became prison or government work. His voice has changed too, crisper, more confident. My company specialized in penetration testing, finding vulnerabilities before the real criminals could exploit them. Useful skills for our current situation. Very. He straightens, gestures me over. Look at this ownership structure. Artemis Holdings is a shell company, but it's built differently than the others. Multiple layers of protection, anonymous directors, voting shares held by a trust in Liechtenstein. His finger traces a complex diagram on the screen. This is expert work, professional. I lean closer. What does that tell you? That they have help, serious help. He opens another file. These transfer patterns, they're using a technique called layering. Money moves through multiple jurisdictions, changing form each time. Currency conversions, property purchases that are immediately sold, investments that liquidate into different accounts. Laundering 101, I comment. Yes, but executed with unusual precision. He points to a series of transactions. See these timing patterns? They're algorithmic, designed to avoid regulatory flags. His expression darkens. This isn't amateur hour. This is state-level methodology. The implications hang in the air between us. I break the silence. Your wife and her banker friend are playing in very deep waters. Walker runs a hand through his hair, a gesture that finally betrays his stress. Elena doesn't have this expertise. She's smart, ruthless even, but this... He gestures at the screen. This is beyond her technical capabilities. Berger, then? Possibly. Or they have partners we haven't identified yet. He continues scrolling through documents. What's increasingly clear is that they're using my reputation, my business connections, as cover. His voice turns bitter. After all, who would suspect the wife of Mark Walker, cybersecurity pioneer, of running financial scams? I let that sink in, watching him process the betrayal on multiple levels. There's something else, I say finally. The timing of all this. Your wife started these Swiss trips 8 months ago after you returned from a business trip to Geneva. Was there anything significant about that trip? Walker stills, his focus turning inward. The security platform I mentioned. We were launching it at a financial technology conference. Major banks, investment firms, government representatives in attendance. He frowns. Elena came along. Normally, she skipped those events, but she insisted this time. Who did she meet there? I don't know. We attended the main events together, but she mentioned spa appointments, shopping trips. His eyes narrow. I was focused on the launch. It was a significant moment for the company. What exactly does this platform do? It's a secure transaction system for high-value transfers between financial institutions, military-grade encryption, advanced authentication protocols. He looks up at me, realization dawning. The kind of system you'd need to understand intimately if you wanted to move money without being detected. The pieces slide together. She wasn't just finding business partners in Switzerland. She was gathering intelligence, using your knowledge, your connections. Walker's face hardens. If they're using my technology, my reputation to facilitate criminal activity... He doesn't finish the sentence, but his hands curl into fists on the keyboard. I move back to my drink, give him space to process. The question now is what they're building toward. My bank source mentioned recent transfers to jurisdictions with no extradition treaties. That suggests preparation for a potential exit. A big score, Walker murmurs. Set up the infrastructure, build the network, then move a substantial sum and disappear. He shakes his head. But they are already moving millions. Why risk exposure for more? People like that, it's never enough. I finish my scotch, feel the familiar warmth spread through my chest. What concerns me is the accelerating timeline. Whatever they're planning, it's approaching endgame. Walker closes the laptop, his decision made. I need to dig deeper into these systems, find out exactly what they're targeting, how much they're planning to take, and when. He looks at me directly. This isn't just about my marriage anymore. If they're exploiting my technology for money laundering, people could get hurt, economies could be damaged. I nod, appreciating his shift from personal betrayal to the bigger picture. It's dangerous territory. If they realize we're onto them, I know the risks. Walker's voice is steady, resolved. But I built systems designed to protect people. I can't stand by while they're weaponized. What's your play? I need time with these files. There will be patterns, connections I can identify that others might miss. He glances at his watch. Elena believes I'm in Tokyo on business. That gives us at least 3 days before she might become suspicious of my whereabouts. I consider our options. I'll continue physical surveillance. The bank assistant mentioned that something has Berger concerned recently. I want to know what's making a man like that nervous. Walker nods. We'll reconvene tomorrow evening. By then, I should have a clearer picture of what we're dealing with. As I turn to leave, Walker calls after me. Hunt! I pause at the door. Thank you for being thorough, for not just telling me what I hired you to find. That's not how I work, I reply simply. I'm beginning to see that. Walker turns back to his laptop, already sinking into the code and numbers that make more sense to him than human relationships ever did. As the door closes behind me, I'm struck by the transformation I witnessed. Mark Walker isn't just a wounded husband. He's a man rediscovering his strength through the very betrayal meant to exploit him. Whether that strength will be enough against whatever his wife and her banker friend are building remains to be seen. The danger just became real in a way neither of us anticipated when he first showed me those clinic bills in his home office. What started as a suspicion of infidelity has evolved into something that smells like international financial crime. And in my experience, when those stakes rise, bodies tend to follow. My hotel room feels smaller after seeing Walker's suite, the walls pressing in like a cheap suit. Outside, rain taps against the window with Swiss precision, each drop exactly like the last. I kick off my shoes, loosen my tie, and spread the day's evidence across the bed. Photos, notes, mental snapshots of conversations and gestures. The pieces of the puzzle don't quite fit yet, their edges still rough, but a picture is forming. Something ugly and elaborate, with more moving parts than a luxury watch. I pour myself a drink from a bottle that cost too much from the minibar and begin the process of turning observation into understanding. The rain intensifies, blurring Zurich's lights into watery smears. This city feels like money made tangible. Every building, every street, every carefully tended flower box, radiating the quiet confidence of wealth that never needs to speak its name. It's the perfect backdrop for what Elena Walker and Klaus Berger are constructing. Hide your scheme in a city built on discretion, and it becomes nearly invisible. I tack the photos to the wall in chronological order. Elena, arriving at the airport, entering the clinic, emerging transformed, meeting Berger, passing the portfolio. The physical evidence of betrayal. Not just of a husband, but of systems, laws, perhaps entire institutions. The images show a woman comfortable in her deception, moving through her elaborate choreography with practiced ease. Anna Mueller's flash drive contained more than financial records. It held the architecture of something designed to move money on a scale that makes mere millions seem like pocket change. Walker saw it immediately. The algorithmic patterns, the layered protections, the strategic jurisdictional shifts. Not the work of amateurs or opportunists, but professionals playing a long game. I study my notes on the key players. Elena Walker, charming, ambitious, coldly calculating according to her husband. In person, she moves with the confidence of someone who has never faced consequences. Her eyes scan rooms automatically, checking exits, noting observers. Not the habits of a doctor's patient or a cheating wife, but of someone accustomed to higher stakes. Klaus Berger, private banker, old European money, rumored underworld connections. The way he carried himself at the restaurant spoke of a man comfortable with power, used to compliance. But Anna mentioned he seemed concerned recently, more cautious. Something has changed in their operation, introduced an element of risk that wasn't there before. Mark Walker, the supposed victim, but far from helpless. The transformation I witnessed in his hotel suite revealed the mind that built a cybersecurity empire. Analytical, precise, with resources and knowledge that could prove either salvation or liability, depending on how he deploys them. His emotional investment makes him unpredictable, a wild card in a game otherwise played with cold calculation. Anna Mueller, young, frightened, but principled enough to take significant risks. Her access to Berger's operation makes her valuable but vulnerable. If they discover her betrayal, she won't simply lose her job. People who move millions through shadow networks don't tolerate loose ends. I sip my drink, let the pieces rearrange themselves in my mind. The timing keeps nagging at me. Elena beginning her Swiss operation 8 months ago, immediately after accompanying Walker to a financial technology conference in Geneva. A conference where he launched a secure transaction system designed for high-value transfers between banks. The connection seems obvious now. Elena didn't marry Walker for his money alone. She married him for his expertise, his connections, his reputation, access to systems designed to protect financial institutions, which could be turned to exploit them if you understood their architecture intimately enough. But exploit them how? And to what end? The scale suggests something beyond simple theft or fraud. 15 million already moved, with acceleration in recent months. The infrastructure they're building could potentially handle hundreds of millions. Anna mentioned transfers to jurisdictions with no extradition treaties, preparation for disappearance. A sudden score, then. Something big enough to justify the elaborate preparation, the years of groundwork. something timed to allow them to vanish before the fallout begins. I flip through my notebook to Anna's parting words. "Whatever you think this is, Mr. Hunt, it's bigger." She wasn't being dramatic. She was being precise. The rain drums harder against the window as I pour another finger of scotch. I'm missing something. A target, a timeline, the final piece that turns suspicion into certainty. Walker may find it in the data, in the code, that speaks to him more clearly than people ever could. I need to find it in the human elements, the gestures, the patterns of movement, the unguarded moments when masks slip. Tomorrow, I'll return to surveillance. Follow Burr tomorrow. I'll return to surveillance. Follow Berger rather than Elena. See where he goes, who he meets. Anna mentioned the bank's security protocols had recently tightened. Something has changed in their operation, either an opportunity approaching or a threat emerging. Either way, it will force movement, decisions, potential mistakes. I arrange the photos of Elena and Berger at the restaurant, focusing on the portfolio that passed between them. Whatever it contained was significant enough to change Berger's demeanor. Approval and surprise, according to my notes. A development he hadn't fully anticipated. Good news for their operation, but unexpected. The kind of surprise that can make careful people careless. My phone sits silent on the nightstand. No messages from Walker, who's likely still dissecting the financial data. No further contact from Anna Mueller, who's probably regretting her moment of conscience. No calls from home, where cases far simpler than this one wait in a stack of folders on my desk. Just the rain and the distant sounds of a city preparing for sleep. I check my equipment for tomorrow, camera cleaned and charged, extra memory cards, the small audio recorder that sometimes catches what the camera misses, the tools of my trade, mundane and essential. I lay out clothes that will let me blend into Zurich's banking district. Nothing flashy, nothing memorable, the urban camouflage of the professionally invisible. Sleep seems unlikely, but I go through the motions. Brush teeth, wash face, set an alarm for early morning. The routine of normalcy in circumstances that have moved well beyond normal. As I lie on the too-soft mattress, staring at the ceiling, I review what I know against what I suspect. I know Elena Walker is involved in a complex financial scheme with Klaus Berger. I know they're moving millions through elaborate structures designed to hide origins and destinations. I know they're leveraging Mark Walker's technology and reputation. I know they're preparing exit strategies to non-extradition countries. I suspect they're building toward a significant event, a major theft, fraud, or market manipulation. I suspect the timeline is accelerating. I suspect others are involved beyond the players I've identified. And I suspect that when it all comes together, the fallout will extend far beyond a broken marriage and stolen funds. The rain eases to a gentle patter, almost soothing in its persistence. In the quiet, my thoughts drift to Walker, alone in his luxury suite surrounded by evidence of his wife's betrayal. The man built systems to protect, only to discover they're being turned against their purpose. There's something almost Greek in the tragedy of it. The creator undone by his creation, the protector becoming an unwitting accomplice. I wonder how many other unwitting accomplices are involved in whatever Elena and Berger are building. How many Anna Muellers, following orders, processing paperwork, maintaining the machinery of finance without seeing the larger design. Systems only work because people trust them, rely on them, believe in their integrity. Exploit that trust systematically enough, and you can move mountains or millions without anyone noticing until it's too late. My eyes grow heavy as rain clouds part, allowing moonlight to slip through the window in thin silver blades. Tomorrow will bring new information, new complications, potentially new dangers. Walker will have analyzed the data, perhaps identified the ultimate target. I'll have tracked Berger, possibly discovered new players. The picture will sharpen, the stakes will rise. For now, I let sleep approach, carrying me toward dreams of shadowed figures moving money through an elaborate maze of numbers and laws. In my last conscious moment, I remember Elena's face as she scanned the darkness outside the restaurant. Alert, predatory, briefly uncertain. She sensed she was being watched, but couldn't locate the observer. That uncertainty is my only advantage in a game where everyone else seems to know exactly what they're playing for. This case started with a husband's suspicion of infidelity. Now it's expanding into something that makes adultery seem quaint by comparison. A financial conspiracy with implications I'm only beginning to grasp. Whatever Elena Walker and Klaus Berger are planning, it's just the visible portion of something much larger lurking beneath the surface. This is just the beginning. Morning in Zurich arrives like a banker, precise, well-dressed, and utterly devoid of warmth. The clinic's parking lot gleams with overnight rain, each puddle reflecting fragments of a sky that can't decide if it wants to clear or darken further. I've been here since 5 a.m., tucked into the shadow of a neighboring building's delivery entrance, my thermos of coffee long empty, my legs complaining about the folding stool that's been my perch for the last 3 hours. The camera rests heavy against my chest, ready. Waiting is the longest part of my job, but patience has always been my most reliable partner. Last night's revelations orbit my thoughts like persistent moons. 15 million moved through shadow networks. Walker's technology repurposed for deception. Elena and her banker friend building toward something that makes mere adultery seem quaint. I'd planned to follow Berger today, track his movements through the world of private banking, but instinct led me here instead. Start at the source. Elena's appearance at the clinic is the first domino in her daily choreography of lies. The Helvetica Wellness Institute looks more like a small palace than a medical facility. 3 stories of elegant stonework with discreet security that doesn't advertise itself, but is evident to practiced eyes. 2 cameras at the main entrance, another sweeping the parking area. A guard who circulates the perimeter at precise intervals, dressed well enough to be mistaken for a client. I've positioned myself where their blind spots overlap, in the shadow of a service entrance to the building next door. My credentials as a visiting journalist for a medical technology magazine sit in my pocket, unused but ready if questioned. Elena arrived at 8:30, emerging from a taxi with the composed grace of someone who's never known financial uncertainty. Camel coat, sleek black dress visible beneath, hair pulled back in a style that emphasizes her cheekbones. Nothing about her appearance suggested a woman seeking treatment. No comfortable clothes for extended sitting, no folder of medical documents, none of the slight anxiety that even the wealthy display when facing doctors. She entered with the confident stride of someone attending a business meeting, nodding to the receptionist like a regular whose name requires no confirmation. The clinic's other clients arrive at irregular intervals, a silver-haired man leaning on an elegant cane, an older woman wearing dark glasses despite the cloudy day, a young couple speaking rapid-fire German, the woman's hand protectively over her abdomen. Staff in discreet uniforms come and go, some carrying catered lunchboxes, others pushing carts of supplies. Nothing unusual for a high-end clinic catering to those wealthy enough to make illness a private affair. At 11:17, the pattern breaks. Elena emerges through the clinic's front doors, but she's not alone. Klaus Berger walks beside her, his hand hovering near the small of her back without quite touching it. An intimacy restrained by public setting. Like Elena, he shows no signs of having received or administered medical care. His suit is impeccable, a dark blue that borders on black, his posture radiating the casual authority of old money. They pause at the top of the steps, heads inclined toward each other in conversation. I raise my camera, the telephoto lens bringing them close enough to count eyelashes. The shutter clicks softly as I capture a series of images. Elena laughs at something Berger says, the sound not carrying to my position but visible in the way her shoulders lift. Her head tilts back. Not the performed laugh she likely gives her husband, but something more genuine. Berger's hand finally makes contact, resting briefly on her arm. A gesture that speaks of established intimacy rather than new passion. They descend the steps together, moving toward a slate-gray Bentley parked in a space marked Director. The car alone represents more money than most people see in years, its understated elegance a perfect match for its occupants. A driver emerges, opens the rear door. Elena slides in first, Berger following after a quick scan of the surroundings, not the casual glance of someone checking traffic, but the methodical sweep of a man accustomed to being watched. I capture it all. The way Elena's hand brushes his as they enter the car, the leather portfolio she carries identical to the one from the restaurant, the brief moment when Berger leans to whisper something that makes her nod with sudden seriousness. Whatever game they're playing, they're deep in its mechanics now, moving with the synchronized precision of longtime conspirators. The Bentley's engine purrs to life, a sound like money being whispered. I take final photos as it pulls away, noting the license plate for later reference. They're heading toward the financial district, just as I expected. The clinic visit was merely the first act in today's performance, a necessary appearance to maintain the medical treatment fiction for anyone tracking Elena's movements. As I lower my camera, a prickling sensation crawls up my spine, the primitive warning system that saved my life more than once. Someone is watching me. I don't turn immediately, instead busying myself with my camera settings, using the moment to scan my periphery without being obvious. There, across the street, a man in a charcoal overcoat, seemingly absorbed in his phone. But his posture is too rigid for casual browsing, his position too perfect for surveilling this exact spot. When a delivery truck momentarily blocks his view, I use the opportunity to snap a quick photo in his direction, the camera's zoom revealing what my eyes could only suspect. His face is unremarkable, the kind designed to be forgotten. But his eyes have the flat, professional assessment of someone who watches people for a living. One hand remains in his coat pocket, slightly bulging in a way that suggests either a weapon or communication device. He's not clinic security. Wrong position, wrong demeanor. I pack my equipment with deliberate casualness, sling my bag over my shoulder, and begin walking in the opposite direction from my observer. My mind races through possibilities. Berger's security, checking for surveillance? Someone working for Walker that he failed to mention? Or a third party with interest in whatever Elena and Berger are building? Whoever he is, his presence confirms my growing suspicion. This case has more players than initially apparent, and the stakes are high enough to warrant professional surveillance. I turn a corner, quickening my pace without appearing to hurry. I need to reach Walker, compare notes, adjust our approach. The game has just become more complicated, and I suspect we've only seen the opening moves. The Café Monarch occupies the corner of a street too narrow for cars and too exclusive for tourists. Crystal chandeliers hang above marble tables, and the clientele speaks in the hushed tones of people accustomed to being overheard. I arrive 15 minutes early, choose a table with a view of both entrances, and order an espresso I don't touch. The message from Anna came 3 hours ago through the secure app I gave her. Terse, urgent. New transfers, massive, need to talk, Monarch, 11:30. The panic was evident even in those few words, each period like a small gasp for breath. She arrives exactly on time, but almost unrecognizable from our previous meeting. Her hair is down today, partially obscuring her face, and she's wearing oversized sunglasses despite the cloudy sky. A navy scarf wound too tightly around her neck suggests both disguise and constriction. She scans the cafe with the jerky movements of prey-sensing predators, then makes her way to my table, clutching her bag like it contains state secrets. "Maybe it does. You weren't followed?" she asks, before sitting, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," I lie. I can't be certain the man from the clinic didn't track me, but telling her would only add fuel to her obvious terror. "Sit down, Anna. You're attracting more attention standing there." She slides into the chair, positions herself so her back isn't to either door. Smart. She removes her sunglasses, revealing eyes ringed with exhaustion. "I shouldn't have come," she says, fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on her bag. "But you need to know. Things are accelerating." "Tell me," I say, keeping my voice low and steady. Anna leans forward, words tumbling out in an urgent stream. "Last night, after regular hours, Mr. Berger initiated a series of transfers, larger than anything before. 8 million euros, moving through the structure we discussed. But the pattern is different. Faster, fewer stops, more direct paths to the final destinations. Which are Cayman Islands, Singapore, Dubai." She swallows hard. "And accounts I've never seen before, with coding that suggests they're temporary. Single use. The kind that exist for one transaction before disappearing completely." A waiter approaches. Anna falls silent, her posture stiffening. I order coffee for her, something to justify our table. When he leaves, I ask, "Why the rush? What's changed?" "I don't know exactly." Her hands tremble as she removes a small thumb drive from her bag, keeping it concealed beneath the table. "But yesterday, Mr. Berger received a call that changed everything. He took it in his private office, but when he came out, he immediately called Mrs. Walker. Then the transfers began." "Could you hear any of the call?" She shakes her head. "Just his tone. He was concerned, not frightened, but—" She searches for the word. "Focused," like when a deadline suddenly moves up. The waiter returns with her coffee. Anna doesn't touch it, her eyes constantly moving between the doors, the other patrons, the street visible through the windows. "There's more," she continues once we're alone again. "The final destinations for these transfers, they're structured differently than before. More sophisticated, triple-blind ownership, algorithmic timing controls, automated dispersal mechanisms." She leans closer. "This isn't just moving money, it's making it impossible to track or recover." I make a mental note, connecting this to Walker's assessment of the previous transfers. "Do you have any idea of the total amount involved in their operation now?" "Based on what I've seen," her voice drops further, "at least 50 million, but there are accounts I don't have access to, separate structures that Mr. Berger handles personally. And the timing? Any indication of when they plan to complete whatever they're building?" Anna's eyes dart to the window, then back. "Soon. Days, not weeks. The temporary accounts I mentioned, they're programmed to dissolve automatically in 6 days. 6 days. The timeline is compressing faster than we anticipated. I keep my expression neutral, but my mind races through implications. Whatever Elena and Berger are planning, it's approaching endgame rapidly. "The data," I prompt gently, nodding toward her concealed hand. Anna slides the thumb drive across the table beneath a napkin. "Everything I could access, transaction records, account structures, communication logs between Berger and the bank's security team." Her fingers linger on the edge of the napkin. "There's something else you should see." Emails between Berger and someone with the username Artemis. They're carefully worded, but they discuss final preparations and contingencies if systems detect anomalies. Artemis, I repeat. The same name as the Holdings Company. She nods. I believe it's Mrs. Walker's operational name, but there are references to other parties too, coded names I don't recognize. This isn't just two people, it's a network. I pocket the drive discreetly. Anna, you're taking significant risks. If they discover, I know. She cuts me off, a flash of determination breaking through her fear. But I didn't sign up to be part of whatever this is. When it collapses, and it will collapse, I don't want to be buried in the rubble. I study her face, young, frightened, but with an underlying strength. Do you have somewhere safe to go? Someone who can help you disappear for a while? My cousin in Vienna. I've arranged a leave of absence starting tomorrow. Family emergency. A bitter smile touches her lips. Not entirely untrue. Good. Go straight there after... Anna's face suddenly drains of color, her eyes fixed on something over my shoulder. I don't turn immediately, keeping my expression casual as I reach for my coffee. Back entrance, she whispers, voice nearly inaudible. It's him, Berger. Now I turn, a natural movement of someone glancing around a cafe. Klaus Berger stands at the hostess station, immaculate in a charcoal suit, exchanging pleasantries with staff who clearly recognize him as a regular. He hasn't seen us yet, his attention on the hostess's tablet as she checks his reservation. When I turn back, Anna is already standing, her movements tight with panic. I have to go, she hisses. Different exit. If he sees me here with you, stay calm, I murmur. Walk, don't run. I'll create a distraction if needed. She gives a short nod, pulls her scarf higher around her face, and moves toward the side exit with forced casualness. I remain seated, angling my body to block Berger's view of her retreat, pretending to check my phone. A glance confirms Berger is being led to a table on the opposite side of the cafe, his back to Anna's escape route. He moves with the confident ease of a man who owns every room he enters, nodding to other patrons, completely unaware of our presence. Anna reaches the door, slips outside without looking back. Only when she's safely gone do I allow myself to breathe normally, finishing my coffee with deliberate slowness. The thumb drive feels heavy in my pocket, filled with secrets that people like Berger would kill to protect. I leave enough cash to cover the bill plus a generous tip, then make my own exit through the main door, walking past Berger's table without a glance. He's focused on his companion, a gray-haired man with a military bearing, their conversation already deep in progress. Outside, the Zurich air feels suddenly fresher, as if I've emerged from somewhere airless. Anna is nowhere in sight, already vanished into the city's expensive streets. I hope she makes it to Vienna. I hope the thumb drive in my pocket justifies the risk she took to deliver it. 6 days until the temporary accounts dissolve. 6 days to unravel whatever Elena Walker and Klaus Berger have spent months building. The clock is ticking, and I'm increasingly certain we've only glimpsed the edges of what we're facing. My hotel room transforms into an investigation hub with minimal effort. Laptop on the desk, notebook open beside it, phone set to record any thoughts that come too quickly to write down. The curtains are drawn against the midday sun, creating a cave of concentration lit only by the blue glow of my screen. Anna's thumb drive sits in my palm, small enough to crush between my fingers, yet potentially holding enough information to bring down whatever Elena and Berger are constructing. I plug it in, start the decryption software, and watch as it begins its methodical attack on the drive's protections. Digital locks are like physical ones. Given enough time and the right tools, They all eventually open. The decryption takes 17 minutes, longer than I expected, suggesting sophisticated protection. When the files finally appear, they're meticulously organized in folders labeled by date and category. Anna may be terrified, but her banking precision remains intact. I start with the folder marked Transfers Urgent, most recently modified according to the timestamps. Inside are spreadsheets documenting the movement of money through a labyrinth of accounts and entities. The sums make my throat tighten. Individual transfers of 2, 3, 5 million euros moving in synchronized patterns across jurisdictions. Singapore to Cayman to Dubai, then splitting into smaller streams that flow into accounts with alphanumeric designations rather than names. The transactions from last night alone total just over 8 million, exactly as Anna reported. I open another folder labeled Artemis Network, finding a complex organizational chart of shell companies and holding entities. At the center sits Artemis Holdings, with branches extending outward like a digital spider's web. Each node in the network represents a different corporate entity, most registered in jurisdictions famous for financial secrecy: Belize, British Virgin Islands, Jersey, Luxembourg. The structure is elegantly designed to obscure ownership while maintaining control. What catches my attention is a document titled ownershipfinal.pdf. It contains scanned articles of incorporation for Artemis Holdings, with the beneficial owner listed as a trust in Liechtenstein. The trustee is an entity called Phoenix Management Liquid, and the signatory on the documents is Elena Walker, not using her married name, but her maiden name. Elena Marquez. Clever, I mutter, making notes. She's hidden her connection behind layers of paperwork, but maintained legal control through the trust structure. Plausible deniability combined with absolute authority, the perfect arrangement for someone planning to vanish after a major financial operation. The next folder contains emails, and here the picture darkens further. The messages are exchanged between accounts using aliases: Artemis, clearly Elena; Helios, likely Berger based on context; and 3 others: Phoenix, Hermes, and Athena. The mythological theme would be amusing if the content weren't so alarming. One email from 3 days ago catches my eye. From Helios to Artemis, Phoenix, Hermes, Athena. Subject: Timetable adjustment. The window has narrowed. Our sources indicate increased scrutiny of pattern alpha transactions beginning next week. Recommend accelerating to Phase 3 immediately. Athena to prepare final access protocols. Hermes to confirm dispersal mechanisms are in place. Phoenix to secure exit pathways. Full implementation by 15th, no later. Elena's response comes 2 hours later. Target identified and confirmed. M remains unaware. Systems access complete. Awaiting final authorization code from Athena. Estimated total, 120 MD plus. I read the exchange 3 times, my unease growing with each pass. Pattern Alpha suggests a specific type of transaction they fear will soon face heightened scrutiny. Phase 3 appears to be the final stage of whatever they're planning, but it's the casual reference to M, undoubtedly Mark Walker, and the estimated total that truly clarifies the scale, 120 million at minimum. The emails continue, revealing an operation far more sophisticated than a simple case of marital theft. This group, whoever Phoenix, Hermes, and Athena are, has been planning this for at least a year, with Elena's relationship with Walker providing some crucial access or credibility. They discuss system vulnerabilities, manual override procedures, and regulatory blind spots, with the precision of people intimately familiar with financial security. I move to the folder labeled timeline revised, finding a project management document that confirms my growing suspicion. Whatever they're planning culminates in 6 days, exactly matching Anna's warning about the temporary accounts. The document includes a detailed hour-by-hour schedule for the final day, with tasks assigned to each conspirator. Elena's responsibilities include confirmation of authentication protocols and final systems access, suggesting she's using something from Walker's technology or credentials. The most recent transfers make more sense now. They're not just moving existing funds, they're positioning resources for a much larger operation. The 8 million euros moved last night appear to be operational funds distributed to key points in their network in preparation for the main event. I open the final folder labeled simply Targets. Inside is a single encrypted file that my software can't immediately crack. I start a deeper decryption attempt and turn to the financial analysis while it works. The transfer patterns show a clear acceleration. 3 months ago, they were moving 1 to 2 million per month through the network. 1 month ago, it increased to 5 million. Last week, 10 million. And last night, 8 million in a single batch of transfers. The curve isn't just rising, it's approaching vertical. I plot the numbers on a simple graph, and the resulting pattern sends a chill through me. If this trajectory continues, they'll move at least 30 million in the next transfer, likely within 48 hours based on the intervals. Then would come the main event, the 120 Meter Plus, mentioned in Elena's email. The timing suddenly makes sense, the urgency, the accelerated schedule. They're not just concerned about generic increased scrutiny. They know something specific is coming. A regulatory change, a security update, something that will close the vulnerabilities they're exploiting. And they're racing to beat it. My decryption software pings, having finally cracked the target file. I open it to find a list of bank identification codes. Not account numbers, but the institutional identifiers used in international transfers. These aren't just any banks. They're central clearing institutions, major global banks, and international payment systems, the backbone of the world's financial infrastructure. Whatever Elena and her co-conspirators are planning, they're not aiming at a single bank account or even a single institution. They're targeting the connective tissue of the global financial system itself. I close the laptop, my mind racing with implications. This isn't just about stealing from Mark Walker or even laundering money through Swiss banks. It's something far more ambitious and destructive. A coordinated attack on financial systems, likely exploiting vulnerabilities that Walker's own technology was designed to protect against. I reach for my phone, dialing Walker's number. He needs to see this immediately. The money isn't just moving, it's accelerating towards something that could have implications far beyond our initial concerns. We don't have days to unravel this. We might not even have hours. Walker's suite occupies the top floor of a hotel that doesn't advertise its rates, the kind of place where discretion is included in the price, along with views that make Zurich look like an architect's perfect model rather than a living city. When he opens the door, I barely recognize him. Gone is the hesitant, wounded husband from our previous meetings. This Walker moves with the focused energy of someone who's found purpose in crisis. His sleeves are rolled up, his eyes rimmed with the distinctive fatigue of someone who's been staring at screens for hours, and multiple laptops glow from the suite's dining table, transformed into a command center. The betrayed spouse has been replaced by the technological predator that built a cybersecurity empire. "You sounded urgent on the phone," he says, stepping aside to let me enter. The room smells of cold coffee and the particular intensity of a man who hasn't slept. I place Anna's thumb drive on the table. "It's worse than we thought, and moving faster." Walker nods, unsurprised. I've been finding similar patterns. Show me what you've got. For the next 20 minutes, I walk him through Anna's files, explaining the accelerated transfers, the network of shell companies, and the emails between the conspirators. Walker absorbs it all with the analytical focus of someone translating human problems into solvable algorithms, occasionally nodding or asking clarifying questions. When I reach the part about the target banks and the 120 ME plus figure, his expression hardens. "They're not just stealing from me," he says, moving to one of his laptops. "They're using my technology, my systems, to hit the entire financial infrastructure." His fingers move across the keyboard with practiced precision. "I suspected something like this when I started digging into the code traces Elena left behind, but this confirms it." He turns the screen toward me, showing lines of programming code interspersed with diagrams of data flows. It might as well be hieroglyphics to me, but Walker reads it like a native language. "My security platform, the one I launched in Geneva last year, it's designed to protect major financial institutions from exactly this kind of attack." His voice holds equal parts anger and grudging professional respect. "Elena has been systematically collecting backdoor access points, security protocols, and authentication methods, using my own credentials in many cases." "How?" I ask. "Wouldn't you notice someone accessing your systems?" Walker's laugh is bitter. "The perfect insider threat. My wife, in my home, using my devices when I'm traveling or sleeping. Small intrusions over months. Nothing that would trigger security alerts. She's been patient, methodical." He runs a hand through his thinning hair. "And I gave her the perfect cover, a distant husband who trusted her completely." I move to the window, giving him a moment with his realization. The afternoon sun glints off Lake Zurich, the water deceptively peaceful from this height. "So what's your plan?" I ask, turning back to him. "We should contact authorities." Walker shakes his head. "Not yet. We don't have enough concrete evidence of what they're planning, just fragments and patterns. If we go to the authorities now, Elena and Berger will know immediately through their connections. They'll accelerate or abandon their current plan, disappear with what they've already taken, and we'll lose any chance of stopping the main attack." "Then what's your alternative?" He straightens, and I see the executive who built a tech empire emerge from the wounded husband. "I'm going to hack them back. Use my knowledge of the systems they're exploiting to track their activities in real time, document everything, and when we have definitive proof of their plan, we take it all to Interpol and the financial authorities simultaneously." "That sounds legally questionable," I observe. "Completely," he agrees without hesitation. "But I built these systems. I know their vulnerabilities better than anyone, including Elena and whatever experts she's working with." He gestures to his array of equipment. "I've already established monitoring on the accounts we know about. Now, with Anna's data, I can expand the surveillance net." He inserts the thumb drive into his main laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard as he integrates the new information into whatever system he's building. Lines of code reflect in his glasses as he works. "The network they've constructed is elegant," he says, almost appreciatively. "Multiple layers of separation, algorithmic triggers, automated dispersal mechanisms. Elena may not have the technical skills to design this, but she certainly found people who do." "The emails mentioned other conspirators, Phoenix, Hermes, Athena?" Walker nods. "I've been trying to identify them based on communication patterns and linguistic markers. Athena appears to be their technical expert, likely someone with deep knowledge of banking security systems. Hermes handles logistics, moving money, creating and dissolving entities. Phoenix?" He frowns. "Phoenix seems to be the leader, or at least the one providing strategic direction." "Not Elena?" No, she's important, critical even, but she's an instrument, not the composer. His expression darkens. She's being used as much as she's using me, though I doubt she realizes it. I watch him work for a moment, impressed despite myself. Walker may be driven by personal betrayal, but his approach is rigorously professional. "I've found something," he says suddenly, his focus intensifying on one screen. "Based on Anna's timeline and these transfer patterns, they're preparing for a major movement within the next 48 hours, likely a test run before the main event." He brings up a diagram showing interconnected nodes, some pulsing with activity. They're consolidating funds from multiple sources into these staging accounts. He points to several flashing points. From there, they'll move everything through a series of rapid transactions designed to overwhelm monitoring systems, exploiting a narrow timing vulnerability in the interbank settlement process. Can you block it? Not directly, not without revealing that we're onto them. He leans back, thinking. But I can document it, trace where everything goes, and most importantly, I can identify exactly which systems they're planning to hit in the main attack. He opens another window, showing a complex financial model. Based on what I've pieced together, they're planning to trigger a cascading sequence of transactions across multiple institutions simultaneously. It's not just theft. It's designed to create maximum chaos in the system while they extract funds during the confusion. The scale of what he's describing sinks in. This isn't just about stealing from Walker or even laundering money. It's about exploiting financial infrastructure at a fundamental level, creating a crisis that could affect markets globally while making off with massive sums. Walker turns to another screen, his expression growing more troubled. "There's something else you need to see." He brings up financial records, his personal accounts, investment portfolios, real estate holdings. "Elena has been systematically transferring my assets into vehicles she controls. Not everything. That would be too obvious. But significant portions, converted to liquid form and positioned for immediate movement. I study the records, noting dates and amounts. How much has she already moved? "Approximately 23 million, he says, his voice tight. "All technically legal. She has authorized access to most of my accounts, but the pattern of transfers shows clear intent to hide the money," I finish for him. "How close is she to getting everything beyond reach?" "Very." Walker points to several pending transactions. "These are scheduled to execute tomorrow. Another 12 million moving to accounts she controls. Once that happens, even if we stop the larger operation, she'll still walk away with enough to disappear comfortably forever." The urgency of our situation clarifies. We're not just racing to prevent a sophisticated financial crime, we're also trying to prevent Elena from completing her personal heist from her husband's fortune. "Can you block the transfers?" I ask. "Some, not all. She's been clever about establishing legitimate access and authority. Challenging everything would require legal proceedings that would take weeks." His jaw tightens. "But I can delay certain transfers, create technical issues that will slow things down without alerting her." Walker turns to me, his eyes reflecting the blue light of the screens. "We need more leverage, something concrete we can take to authorities before the main event, something that proves criminal intent beyond simply a wife moving her husband's money." "I'll keep following Elena and Berger," I say. "They'll have to meet with the other conspirators before the main event. Coordinate final details, confirm protocols." "Good." Walker nods, already turning back to his computers. "I'll focus on mapping their entire system based on Anna's data. If we can identify exactly which vulnerabilities they're planning to exploit, we might be able to warn the institutions without alerting Elena's group." As I turn to leave, Walker speaks again, his voice different, lower, with an edge of steel I haven't heard before. Hunt. When this is over, when we've stopped whatever they're planning, I want Elena to lose everything, not just what she's stolen from me, but whatever life she thought she was building with Berger. I want her to face consequences. I study him for a moment. The wounded husband hasn't disappeared entirely. He's simply been transformed into something more dangerous. One step at a time, I tell him. First, we stop the operation. He nods, but his expression doesn't soften. 48 hours? Maybe less. That's our window. As I close the door behind me, I catch a final glimpse of Walker, silhouetted against the screens, already absorbed in his digital counterattack. The betrayed has become the hunter, using the very skills his wife sought to exploit against her. Whether his technical prowess will be enough against whatever network Elena has assembled remains to be seen. Time, as Walker noted, is running dangerously short. Berger Private Banking doesn't advertise its services. You either know about it or you don't, and if you don't, you can't afford it. The building sits on Bahnhofstrasse like old money personified. Understated gray stone, discreet brass plaque, windows that reveal nothing. Inside, the air smells like polished wood and inherited wealth, with undertones of fresh flowers arranged daily by someone who's never worried about their retirement. I adjust my borrowed Patek Philippe watch, on loan from Walker, along with the hand-tailored suit that transforms me from investigator to potential client. The bank's marble floors whisper beneath Italian leather shoes that cost more than my monthly rent, each step a reminder that I'm playing a dangerous game in a world where I don't belong. Walker's connections worked their magic, an appointment with a senior relationship manager to discuss relocating substantial assets from American markets. The story is that I'm a successful tech entrepreneur looking for privacy and security. The manager who greets me, a silver-haired woman with perfect posture and a smile that calculates my worth with every glance, believes the fiction because people like her want to believe in new money seeking the shelter of old institutions. "Mr. Haverford," she says, using the name on my temporary credentials. "Welcome to Berger Private Banking. Would you care for refreshment while we prepare the conference room?" I accept a sparkling water, positioning myself in the reception area with a clear view of both the main entrance and the elevator bank. Walker's intelligence was solid. Elena and Berger have a meeting scheduled for 5:30 p.m., likely to finalize details for tomorrow's transfers. My objective is simple: observe, document, and if possible, gather information about their next moves. At 5:27, the main doors open. Elena enters first, wearing a tailored black pantsuit that exudes confidence and authority. Berger follows a half-step behind, his hand hovering near her lower back without touching. The same proprietary gesture I observed at the clinic. They speak in low tones, Elena's expression animated but controlled. Neither notices me, partially concealed behind a tasteful arrangement of orchids, my attention seemingly focused on financial documents spread before me. The receptionist greets them with the deference reserved for valued patrons rather than colleagues. Interesting, Elena isn't just Berger's lover, she has her own standing here. They bypass the general reception area, moving directly to a private elevator accessible via keycard. Berger's security badge opens the doors, and they disappear inside. My relationship manager returns, apologizing for the delay. I offer a practiced smile, asking for a tour of the facilities to get a feel for the institution. She's happy to oblige. Potential clients with assets to transfer deserve the full treatment. I make appropriate noises of appreciation as she shows me the main banking hall, private meeting rooms, and, eventually, the executive level accessible by a separate elevator from the one Berger and Elena used. Our most exclusive clients meet directly with our partners on the upper floors, she explains, leading me down a hallway of polished mahogany. Complete privacy is, of course, our hallmark. Of course, I murmur, noting the layout, the security cameras positioned at discreet angles, the staff moving with the quiet efficiency of people who handle secrets for a living. My opportunity comes when my guide is called away briefly to take an urgent call. Please feel free to review our materials in the client lounge, she says, gesturing to a comfortable sitting area with views of the lake. I'll return momentarily. The moment she's gone, I move purposefully down the hallway as if I belong there, following signs to the executive offices. The upper floor is designed like a private club. Seating areas separated by elegant partitions, conference rooms with frosted glass doors, art that costs more than most homes decorating the walls. I spot Elena and Berger through one such door, seated with a third person whose back is to me. A security guard glances my way, but my tailored suit and confident stride seem to satisfy him. I select a seating alcove near their conference room, hidden from direct view by a decorative screen, but close enough to potentially overhear. I remove my phone, activating the recording app Walker provided, designed to enhance distant conversations while filtering background noise. Then I pretend to review financial documents while straining to catch their words. Their voices come in fragments, broken by the ambient sounds of the bank. Timing is critical, Berger is saying. The test transfers must complete before... Elena's voice, sharper and clearer. I've already prepared everything. The accounts are ready to receive. The third person speaks, a woman with a precise, accented voice. The authentication protocols have been modified as requested. Once initiated, the system will process all transactions as priority clearance. This must be Athena from the emails, their technical specialist. I adjust my position slightly, trying to glimpse her without revealing my presence. And the divorce filing? Berger asks, his tone dropping to ensure privacy. Elena's response is immediate and cold. Scheduled for tomorrow morning, Geneva jurisdiction. My lawyers will move for emergency asset freezing based on evidence of his financial improprieties. I stiffen, nearly dropping my pen. This is a twist I hadn't anticipated. Elena isn't just stealing from Walker, she's planning to use the legal system to lock him out of his own assets while their operation concludes. The timing is aggressive, says the third woman, Athena. Will it create complications for access? No, Elena replies with confidence. I have all necessary credentials and authorizations already. The filing is simply to prevent him from interfering when he inevitably becomes suspicious. Once the freeze is in place, he'll be unable to move assets or access certain systems without court approval. Which will take weeks, Berger adds with satisfaction. By then, everything will be complete. They lower their voices further, discussing technical details I can't quite catch. I remain motionless, the recording continuing, my mind racing with implications. Elena's divorce strategy is brilliantly timed, a legal maneuver designed to hamstring Walker precisely when he might otherwise act to protect his assets. By filing for divorce and claiming financial misconduct, she can potentially freeze accounts and systems access at the critical moment. The conversation shifts to tomorrow's schedule. The test sequence begins at 9 a.m. Central European, says Athena. 12 million through the established channels, with full monitoring of system responses. And assuming no alerts? Berger asks. Then we proceed to primary implementation at midnight, when system traffic is lowest and most security protocols run automated rather than manual monitoring. Elena's voice has a note of finality. Phoenix has confirmed all exit strategies are in place. 48 hours after completion, we'll rendezvous at the designated location. My guide appears at the end of the hallway, looking for me. I quickly deactivate the recording app, tuck away my phone, and stand as if I've just finished reviewing my documents. She approaches with an apologetic smile, unaware of what I've just witnessed. My apologies for the interruption, Mr. Haverford. Shall we continue our discussion in my office? I follow her back downstairs, my thoughts churning with this new information. Elena's divorce filing changes everything, adding a legal dimension that could completely undermine Walker's ability to counter their operation. If she files tomorrow morning and convinces a judge to issue an emergency freeze on their joint assets, Walker could find himself locked out of his own systems at the critical moment. As I make my polite excuses to end the meeting, promising to be in touch after consulting with my advisors, I catch a glimpse of Elena and Berge descending in their private elevator, heads close together in conversation. Elena's expression holds the satisfied look of someone whose plans are falling perfectly into place. She has no idea that her conversation was overheard, that her scheme to blindside her husband has itself been anticipated. Outside, the evening air carries the first hint of autumn chill. I move quickly down Bahnhofstrasse, putting distance between myself and the bank before pulling out my phone to call Walker. The recording alone will be valuable, but the urgent message is clear. Elena isn't just stealing his money and exploiting his technology. She's about to use the legal system itself as a weapon against him, and she's doing it tomorrow morning. The hotel bar at the Widder cultivates darkness like a rare orchid, ambient lighting that flatters wealth and softens the edges of whatever deals are being struck in its leather booths. At midnight, the clientele has thinned to serious drinkers and insomniacs, with the occasional pair of lovers who prefer discretion to sleep. I nurse a scotch that costs more than I'd typically spend on dinner, watching ice melt in precise increments. The day's events replay in my mind. Anna's trembling hands passing me the thumb drive, Elena's cold calculation as she discussed freezing her husband's assets, the clinical precision with which they're planning to exploit financial systems worth billions. My body aches with the particular fatigue that comes from hours of enforced stillness during surveillance, but sleep feels like a distant possibility. My phone sits beside my glass, the recorded conversation secured behind encryption that Walker provided. Its contents represent more than evidence of infidelity or financial misconduct. They outline a scheme that could potentially destabilize banking systems across multiple countries while enriching a handful of conspirators. The scale of it still seems unreal, like something from a thriller rather than a case that began with suspicious medical bills. Walker appears at the entrance, scanning the room with the focused intensity I've come to recognize. He's still wearing the clothes from earlier, but his appearance has sharpened rather than deteriorated with fatigue, as if the pressure is honing him into something more dangerous. He spots me and moves through the bar with purpose, ignoring the appreciative glance from a woman at the counter. When he slides into the booth opposite me, his eyes have the particular brightness of someone running on adrenaline and determination rather than rest. "You got something concrete," he says. Not a question. I nod, sliding my phone across the table. Audio from their meeting at the bank. Elena, Berger, and a woman I believe is their technical specialist, likely Athena, from the emails. Walker connects a small device to my phone, some kind of security measure or signal blocker, I assume, before pressing play. We both insert wireless earbuds, leaning close over the table as the conversation begins to play. Walker's expression remains neutral through most of it, the practiced composure of a businessman who doesn't reveal his thoughts during negotiations. But when Elena discusses the divorce filing scheduled for tomorrow morning, a muscle tightens in his jaw, his only visible reaction to learning of his wife's plan to legally hamstring him at the critical moment. When the recording ends, Walker remains silent for several seconds, organizing his thoughts. I signal the bartender for fresh drinks, giving him time. "Elegant," he finally says, the word carrying no admiration despite its literal meaning. She's using the legal system itself as a weapon. File for divorce, citing financial improprieties, request emergency asset freezing, and suddenly I can't access my own accounts or systems without court approval, which would take weeks. Can she actually get an emergency freeze that quickly? In Geneva? With the right judge and the right connections? His smile is tight. Absolutely. Especially if she presents evidence that I'm engaged in suspicious financial activities, evidence she's likely fabricated using access to my accounts. Our fresh drinks arrive. Walker leaves his untouched. The timing is the key, he continues. She files first thing tomorrow. The freeze would likely take effect by mid-afternoon, just before their test sequence of transfers. By the time I realized what was happening, my hands would be legally tied. "What's your counter-move?" Walker leans forward, lowering his voice despite the device presumably protecting our conversation. "I've spent the last 6 hours building something that might work. A parallel authentication system that mirrors my existing access but operates through channels Elena doesn't know about." "In English?" His lips quirk slightly. "I'm creating a backdoor into my own systems, one that will remain viable even if my primary access is legally restricted. It won't stop her divorce filing, but it will allow me to maintain surveillance on their activities, regardless of what a Geneva judge decides." I take a sip of my drink, considering. Is that legal? Probably not, but neither is what they're planning. He taps the table with precise, measured movements. The recording confirms what I suspected. They're running a test sequence tomorrow morning using the 12 million from my accounts. If that succeeds, they initiate their main attack at midnight, targeting multiple financial institutions simultaneously. "Do we have enough to go to authorities now?" Walker shakes his head. "Not quite. The recording proves conspiracy and intent to file a potentially fraudulent divorce, but it doesn't definitively connect them to the larger financial scheme. We need to document the test sequence tomorrow, capture them actually executing the suspicious transfers. That would give us irrefutable evidence. Which means letting them proceed with at least part of their plan." "Exactly." His expression darkens. "I don't like it either, but premature intervention risks them escaping with what they've already stolen and potentially executing a modified version of their plan later, when we're not watching. I consider our options. None of them ideal." "What about the divorce filing? Can you prevent it?" "Not without tipping our hand, but I've taken precautions." He finally takes a sip of his drink. "I contacted my attorneys an hour ago. They're preparing counterfilings in multiple jurisdictions, ready to challenge any asset freeze immediately. I've also moved certain critical resources to entities Elena doesn't know about, enough to maintain operations even if my primary accounts are temporarily restricted." Walker sets his glass down with deliberate precision. "But the most important thing I've done is establish monitoring on every account, system, and access point Elena might use. When they initiate their test sequence tomorrow, I'll document every keystroke, every transfer, every communication. By the time they move to their midnight operation, we'll have enough evidence to bring down their entire network." His confidence should be reassuring, but something in his tone triggers my professional caution. "You're planning something beyond surveillance, aren't you?" Walker meets my gaze directly. Elena and her friends aren't just stealing from me. They're exploiting systems I built to protect people, systems that underpin financial infrastructure affecting millions. They're violating everything I've worked for. His voice remains level, but with an underlying current of steel. So yes, once I have definitive proof of what they're doing, I intend to stop them completely. Not just document. Stop. That could be dangerous, I observe. These people aren't amateurs. Neither am I. Walker's eyes have the cold focus of someone who's moved beyond anger to something more controlled and potentially more dangerous. They think they understand my systems, but they're working with stolen fragments of knowledge. I built these protocols from the ground up. I know vulnerabilities they haven't discovered, safeguards they can't anticipate. He checks his watch, a deliberate gesture that reminds me of how precisely this operation is timed. We have less than 8 hours before Elena files for divorce and approximately 12 before their test sequence begins. I need to finish implementing my countermeasures. As he stands to leave, I see something in his posture I haven't observed before, not just determination, but a certain predatory readiness, the hunter emerging from the businessman's careful facade. "Walker," I say as he turns to go, "whatever you're planning, remember that evidence that will stand up in court is our primary objective." He pauses, considering my words. "Evidence is necessary. Justice is essential." His voice drops slightly. "But they've made this personal hunt. They're using my life's work to commit crimes that could hurt countless people. I won't just document that. I'll end it." I watch him leave, moving through the bar with the focused energy of a man who's found clarity in crisis. My instincts, honed through years of observing people at their worst moments, send a warning signal I can't ignore. Walker isn't just gathering evidence anymore. He's preparing for a confrontation. And people like Elena Walker and Klaus Berger, with millions at stake and powerful connections, won't go down without a fight. The ice in my glass has melted completely, diluting what remains of my scotch. I drain it anyway, feeling the day's weight pressing down. Tomorrow will bring Elena's divorce filing, the test transfers, and whatever countermeasures Walker is implementing. The pieces are moving faster now, accelerating toward a collision that seems increasingly inevitable. I leave enough cash to cover the drinks and a generous tip, then head for the exit. The night air carries a chill that matches my growing certainty. This case is about to break open, one way or another. And when it does, the fallout will extend far beyond a failed marriage and stolen millions. Dawn in Zurich arrives reluctantly, like a rich man forced to pay his debts. The sky lightens to the color of old silver, casting weak shadows across streets still slick from overnight rain. I've been walking for 20 minutes, taking a circuitous route back to my hotel, a habit from my detective days that saved my skin more than once. Sleep seems like a distant possibility, my mind still processing Walker's transformation from victim to vengeful strategist. The city is quiet at this hour. A few delivery trucks, the occasional early commuter, street cleaners erasing yesterday's evidence. I turn down a narrow side street lined with shuttered boutiques, and that's when I notice it. A black Mercedes sedan that's taken the same 3 turns I have, maintaining a consistent distance, headlights off despite the dim light. I don't change my pace or give any indication I've spotted the tail. Instead, I pull out my phone, angling it as if checking messages while using the screen's reflection to study the car behind me. 2 occupants, both men, their features indistinct in the dim light. The Mercedes is high-end but understated, the kind favored by security professionals and people who don't want attention. Exactly the vehicle I'd choose if I were following someone through early morning streets. My mind clicks through possibilities. Berger's security team monitoring potential threats to their operation. Or perhaps one of the other conspirators, Phoenix, Hermes, deploying resources to neutralize perceived interference. Whoever they are, their presence confirms that our investigation has been noticed. The question is, how much do they know about what we've discovered? I make a decision, turning deliberately onto Augustina Gasse, a narrow medieval lane too confined for vehicles. The cobblestones are slippery with morning dew, the overhanging buildings creating a canyon of shadows. I quicken my pace slightly, not running, but moving with purpose. At the far end, the street opens onto a small square with a fountain. Instead of crossing directly, I take a sharp right into an even narrower passage between buildings, a service alley barely wide enough for a single person. Behind me, I hear the Mercedes stop at the entrance to Augustina Gasse. A car door opens and closes. Footsteps on cobblestones. Just one pursuer for now. Professional, efficient. They're not taking chances with the narrow streets. The alley leads to a parallel street. I emerge, scan quickly, and spot a delivery entrance to what appears to be a bakery, its metal security gate partially raised to allow access for early morning supplies. I duck inside, nodding to a surprised worker unloading flour sacks as if I belong there, and move quickly through the back of the shop toward the front. The warm smell of baking bread surrounds me as I weave between racks and workstations. The baker's. The alley leads to a parallel street. I emerge, scan quickly, and spot a delivery entrance to what appears to be a bakery, its metal security gate partially raised to allow access for early morning supplies. I duck inside, nodding to a surprised worker unloading flour sacks as if I belong there, and move quickly through the back of the shop toward the front. The warm smell of baking bread surrounds me as I weave between racks and workstations. The bakers are too focused on their morning production to do more than glance at me. I exit through the front door onto a different street, immediately turning left and increasing my pace. My pursuer will have to circle around or backtrack, giving me a brief advantage. I use it to put more distance between us, taking a route that alternates between main streets where I blend with early commuters and narrow passages that offer shortcuts through Zurich's medieval core. For 5 minutes, I think I've lost them. Then the black Mercedes appears at an intersection ahead, moving slowly, the driver scanning pedestrians. I duck into a recessed doorway before they spot me, my heart rate elevating for the first time. These aren't amateurs. They've anticipated my evasion route, using the car to cover ground while the second man continues on foot. I need to change tactics. Staying in the old town with its narrow streets and limited exits makes me predictable. I emerge from the doorway, head down, and walk briskly toward the river. The limit offers bridges, wider streets, more options for disappearing into the gradually increasing morning foot traffic. The Mercedes passes in the opposite direction, still searching. I resist the urge to look directly at it, instead using reflections in shop windows to confirm it hasn't spotted me. But as I approach the nearest bridge, I catch a glimpse of the second pursuer. A broad-shouldered man in a dark coat, moving with the balanced efficiency of someone with military or security training. He's cutting diagonally across my path, using his phone, coordinating with the driver, no doubt. I abruptly change direction, entering a small cafe that's just opening for the day. The sleepy barista barely looks up as I move through to the restroom at the back, lock the door, and wait 30 seconds. Then I climb onto the toilet, push open the small window, and hoist myself up and out into a service area behind the building. My knee protests the gymnastics, an old injury reminding me I'm not as young as I once was. The service area connects to an alley, which leads to a street running parallel to the river. I'm now moving perpendicular to my previous route, hopefully confusing my pursuer's prediction of my path. Dawn has strengthened. the city awakening around me. More people on the streets provides both cover and witnesses, a deterrent if my followers have anything beyond surveillance in mind. I'm 3 blocks from the river when the Mercedes appears again, this time turning directly onto the street ahead of me. Not a coincidence. They've spotted me or predicted my route too accurately. The car accelerates slightly, moving to intercept. I turn immediately into a side street, but it's narrow with few exits, a potential trap. Midway down the block, I spot a solution, a tram stop with a vehicle just arriving. I sprint the last 20 meters, joining the small crowd of early commuters boarding the tram. The doors close just as I step aboard, and through the window I see the Mercedes forced to stop by crossing traffic. The tram pulls away, carrying me out of immediate danger. But temporary escape isn't resolution. Whoever these men are, they know who I am, and likely where I'm staying. The fact that they've escalated to physical surveillance means our investigation has attracted serious attention. Elena and her conspirators are aware of potential interference, which means our timeline has just compressed dramatically. I ride the tram for 2 stops, then exit and double back using a different route. No sign of the Mercedes or the foot pursuer. After taking a circuitous path with multiple direction changes and careful observation for any followers, I find a small plaza with a fountain, deserted except for pigeons at this hour. I select a bench with good visibility in all directions and pull out my phone. Walker answers on the first ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. "Hunt, what's happened?" "We've been made," I say without preamble. "I just spent the last 40 minutes being followed by professionals. Black Mercedes, 2 men, coordinated pursuit through the old town." A pause as he processes this. "Are you safe?" "For now, lost them using the tram system, but they know who I am. Probably where I'm staying." "Berger's security team," Walker says with certainty. "Elena must have connected our investigation to Anna Muller's information leak, which means they know we have evidence, and they'll accelerate their timeline." The sound of rapid typing comes through the phone. "I'm checking. Yes, there's unusual activity in the accounts I'm monitoring. They're initiating preliminary transfers already, hours ahead of their planned test sequence." My skin chills despite the warming morning air. "They're not waiting for Elena's divorce filing. No, they've switched to contingency protocols." Walker's voice tightens. "This changes everything, Hunt. If they're moving now, they won't stop with the test sequence. They'll proceed directly to the main operation." I scan the plaza again, confirming I'm still alone. "How long do we have?" "Based on these transaction patterns, hours, not days. They're consolidating resources for immediate deployment." Keys click rapidly in the background. The divorce filing is probably still happening. It's too valuable as a distraction and legal shield, but they won't wait for it to take effect before moving the funds. "What's our play?" Walker's response is immediate. "Meet me at my hotel in 30 minutes. Come through the service entrance. I'll alert security to expect you. Bring everything you have. Evidence, recordings, notes. We need to compile it all now. And then? Then we go to authorities with what we have, even if it's not as conclusive as I'd prefer. Interpol, Swiss Financial Market Supervisory Authority, and my contacts in global banking security." His voice hardens. "We're out of time for perfect evidence. We need to disrupt their operation before it launches." I stand, already mapping the safest route to Walker's hotel. 30 minutes. Watch your back. If they're following me, they may be monitoring you, too. "They're watching, but they haven't approached." Walker sounds grimly confident. "They think I'm still in the dark about Elena's activities. That's our only remaining advantage." As I end the call, The sun finally breaks over Zurich's eastern horizon, painting the old buildings in deceptively warm light. The city looks peaceful, unaware of the financial manipulation being prepared behind its centuries-old facades. Somewhere in those elegant buildings, Elena Walker and Klaus Berger are accelerating their plans, moving millions through digital channels, preparing to strike at systems that affect global economies, and we're running out of time to stop them. I take one final look around the plaza, commit the faces of my pursuers to memory, and begin moving toward Walker's hotel. The game has changed from investigation to direct confrontation. Whatever happens in the next few hours will determine whether Elena's operation succeeds or fails, and possibly the stability of financial systems far beyond Switzerland's discreet banking houses. The hunt is no longer about gathering evidence. Now it's about prevention, disruption, and the race against a clock we can't precisely read. I move through Zurich's awakening streets with renewed purpose, knowing that somewhere in this city of wealth and secrets, the final act of this drama is already beginning. Mark Walker's Zurich apartment occupies the top floor of a building that wouldn't look twice at $1 million painting in the foyer. I slip through the service entrance as arranged, nodding to the security guard who examines my face with professional scrutiny before letting me pass. The elevator requires both a key card and fingerprint, a reminder that Walker's paranoia predates his wife's betrayal. When the doors open directly into his apartment, I step into a space that looks less lived in than activated. Multiple screens glow blue in the pre-dawn darkness, casting Walker's hunched silhouette into sharp relief against floor-to-ceiling windows where rain traces lonely paths downward, like tears on the face of the city. You weren't followed here? Walker doesn't turn from his screens, fingers dancing across 3 separate keyboards in a pianist's precision. Not after I lost them at the tram. I shrug off my rain-damp jacket. Your security team recognized me from your description? From your photo. Now he glances up. I have your driver's license picture, passport scan, and 3 angles from hotel security cameras. Of course he does. I've known Walker less than a week, but his thoroughness no longer surprises me. The hotel suite was temporary. This apartment is clearly his true Zurich base of operations. One of several global bolt holes, I suspect, maintained by a man who built an empire on anticipating digital threats. The apartment smells of coffee and electronics, the particular scent of metal heated by continuous use. 4 laptops form a semicircle around Walker's workstation, each screen displaying different data. Transaction logs, code sequences, what appears to be a map of global banking networks pulsing with light, and what I recognize as Elena's emails, automatically updating as new messages arrive. You're reading her emails in real time, I observe, and texts, call logs, location data. Walker's voice lacks emotion, as if discussing weather patterns rather than invasive surveillance of his wife. She's at the Boro Lac with Berger. They've been there since 3 a.m. on a conference call with someone using heavy encryption. Their test sequence has already begun. I move closer, studying the screens. That's why they're following me. They know we're onto them. Yes. Walker reaches for a coffee mug, revealing hands trembling slightly from caffeine or exhaustion. But they don't know how much we know or what countermeasures I've implemented. That uncertainty is making them sloppy. He points to a screen showing strings of code and numbers. They've initiated transfers through channels I predicted, using authentication protocols they stole from my systems. And you can track it? Better. For the first time, a ghost of satisfaction crosses his face. I've created what amounts to a parallel banking system, a shadow network that mimics the legitimate channels they're exploiting. When they initiate a transfer, my system intercepts it, routes a confirmation back to them as if it succeeded, but actually quarantines the funds in secure holding accounts. The technical details exceed my understanding, but the implication is clear. You're creating a virtual reality for them to operate in while preserving the actual money. Precisely. Walker shifts to another screen. For the past 4 hours, I've been implementing this across all the systems they're targeting. They think they've already moved 17 million, but it's sitting in quarantine with every keystroke, authorization code, and routing number documented. Is that legal? Walker's laugh is dry, empty of humor. Probably not, but neither is what they're doing. He turns to face me fully, shadows pooling beneath his eyes. I've built my life creating systems that protect financial infrastructure. Elena isn't just betraying me personally, she's weaponizing my life's work. I recognize the dangerous edge in his voice, the same tone he had in the hotel bar last night. Walker, we need evidence that will stand in court. We'll have it. He gestures to a small device on the desk, a specialized external drive with military-grade encryption based on its appearance. Everything is being documented. The transactions, the attempts to access restricted systems, the communications between conspirators, every digital fingerprint. The rain intensifies, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. Dawn remains a theoretical concept, the sky outside still ink-dark, matching the mood in the room. "What's your timeline?" I ask, checking my watch. Nearly 5 a.m. Elena's divorce filing is scheduled for 9 a.m. at the Geneva courthouse. By 10, she expects to have emergency asset freezes in place. He points to a document on one screen. Legal paperwork prepared in advance. Meanwhile, their test sequence is already running. The real attack, the one targeting major financial institutions, is set for noon, accelerated from their original midnight timetable. 7 hours. My throat tightens with the compressed timeline. And our plan? 2 tracks. Walker stands, stretches his back with a muted crack. I continue monitoring and quarantining their transactions, gathering irrefutable evidence. You take this. He picks up the encrypted drive. To my contact at the Swiss Financial Market Supervisory Authority. His name is Reichmann, office at Laupenstrasse 27. He has the authority to coordinate with Interpol and global banking security. I take the drive, feeling its weight, physical and metaphorical. And if Elena's divorce filing succeeds before we shut this down? It won't matter. Walker's expression hardens. The evidence is clear enough that no court will uphold asset freezes based on fraudulent claims, and I've already moved critical resources beyond her reach, enough to maintain these operations regardless of legal maneuvers. He leads me to a second workstation, where another laptop displays what appears to be Elena's current location, a moving dot on a hotel floor plan. I'm tracking all 5 conspirators now. Besides Elena and Berger, I've identified Athena as Dr. Sophia Reitenbach, a former security consultant for the European Central Bank. The others, Phoenix and Hermes, remain unconfirmed, but I have algorithmic pattern matching running to identify them from communication styles and behavioral markers. The thoroughness of his counter-operation is both impressive and unsettling. The wounded husband has transformed into something more dangerous, a systematic dismantler of the very scheme designed to destroy him. What if they realize their transactions aren't actually completing? I ask. That they're operating in your virtual environment? They'll receive all expected confirmations, account updates, everything looking normal. Walker's thin smile doesn't reach his eyes. By the time they discover the deception, we'll have authorities in position at every relevant location. The plan is comprehensive, but risks abound: legal, physical, technical. I meet Walker's gaze directly. You understand the personal consequences? Even with evidence of their scheme, your methods are questionable at best. I do. No hesitation in his voice. But some things matter more than legal niceties. They're targeting systems that affect millions of lives, using my technology to do it. I'll accept whatever consequences come. I nod, pocketing the encrypted drive. Walker hands me another device, a secure phone. Use this for communication. Untraceable, encrypted end-to-end. I've programmed Reichmann's contact details. Our preparation complete, I move toward the elevator. Walker remains by his workstation, the blue light of screens making him look simultaneously haggard and indomitable. Hunt, he says as the elevator doors open. Be careful. These people have millions at stake. They won't hesitate if they feel cornered. I know. I step into the elevator. Keep your door locked and security alerted. I'll contact you from Reichmann's office. As the doors close, I catch a final glimpse of Walker, already turning back to his screens, a solitary figure surrounded by digital representations of his wife's betrayal. The elevator descends smoothly, depositing me once more in the service area. Outside, rain has intensified, falling in sheets that transform Zurich's elegant streets into shimmering mirrors. I turn up my collar against the downpour, the encrypted drive heavy in my pocket. Somewhere in this city, Elena Walker and Klaus Berger believe they're executing financial maneuvers that will make them wealthy beyond measure. They don't realize they're moving imaginary money through a shadow system created by the very man they sought to deceive. The rain soaks through my jacket as I merge into the pre-dawn streets, anonymous among early workers. The weight of what's at stake presses down harder than the weather, not just millions in stolen funds, but the integrity of financial systems that affect countless lives, and more personally, the remaining pieces of Mark Walker's shattered existence, which he's risking further to prevent greater harm. Justice and vengeance have become indistinguishable, their boundaries blurred like the rainy streets beneath my feet. Berger private banking doesn't just smell like money. It reeks of it. Old money, preserved in the vault of tradition like a vintage wine that only improves with age. I adjust the Brioni tie that Walker insisted was essential for my cover, feeling like a method actor who's studied wealth but never quite inhabited it. The marble floors whisper beneath handmade Italian shoes, and the receptionist's smile costs more than my monthly mortgage. Berger himself appears from an inner office, hand extended, his confidence worn as comfortably as his bespoke suit. A man who has never doubted his place in the world's upper strata. His handshake is firm, dry, the grip of someone who believes touching money doesn't leave a residue. Mr. Haverford, he says, using the alias Walker arranged through connections that cost him 6 figures and several favors. Welcome to Berger Private Banking. I understand you're considering a significant restructuring of your tech portfolio. The regulatory environment in the States has become restrictive, I reply, following the script. My advisors suggested your institution has experience with more flexible arrangements. Berger's smile doesn't reach his eyes, which remain calculating, assessing whether I'm worth his personal attention or should be passed to a subordinate. Apparently, I pass. Discretion is our primary product, Mr. Haverford, more valuable than any interest rate or investment return. He gestures toward a hallway lined with oil paintings of alpine landscapes that probably cost more than the actual mountains they depict. Please, let me show you our facilities. I believe they'll reassure you regarding our commitment to both security and privacy. I follow him through the bank's inner sanctum, noting security cameras disguised as architectural elements. the weight of steel beneath the decorative paneling, a vault masquerading as a palace. Berger narrates as we walk, his voice modulated to convey absolute confidence. Unlike larger institutions, we maintain complete separation between client accounts. No shared systems, no centralized databases that could be compromised. He pauses at a frosted glass door, requiring both keycard and fingerprint authentication. Each client relationship is managed through dedicated air-gapped infrastructure. Regulatory inquiries stop at our front desk. The pride in his voice when describing how effectively his bank shields clients from oversight tells me everything about his character. This is a man who views laws as inconveniences that apply to lesser beings. Impressive, I murmur, playing my role. And international transfers? My business requires rapid movement between jurisdictions. Our specialty. The door opens to reveal a conference room with views of Lake Zurich. We maintain private channels through partner institutions globally. Funds can move within hours, completely shielded from conventional monitoring systems. He's practically confessing to money laundering, dressed up in the language of exclusive service. The recording device Walker provided, disguised as a Mont Blanc pen in my breast pocket, captures every word. Perhaps a demonstration of your systems would help me understand the process better, I suggest, moving toward the sleek computer terminal on the conference room's side table. Berger hesitates, professional caution warring with the desire to impress a potential high-value client. Our client interface is proprietary, but I could show you a sanitized demonstration account. A soft knock interrupts him. The door opens to reveal Anna Müller, her posture professionally rigid but eyes flickering momentarily to mine with recognition. "Excuse me, Mr. Berger," she says, voice carefully modulated. "The compliance documents for the Singapore transfer require your immediate signature. The window closes in 20 minutes. Berger's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, the mask of perfect service slipping to reveal irritation. "Can't Weber handle it?" "He tried, sir. The counterparty specifically requires the principal partner's signature." She holds up a folder of documents. "It's the Nakamura account." The name clearly means something to Berger. His expression shifts. "Very well. Mr. Haverford, please excuse me for a moment. This requires my attention." He gestures to the computer. "Feel free to review our client materials. I'll return shortly." Perfect. Anna has created exactly the opening we needed. As Berger follows her from the room, I move immediately to the terminal, removing a small device from my watch. Another of Walker's technological miracles, a specialized drive containing programs designed to bypass his own security systems, which Elena and Berger have repurposed. The terminal requires login credentials, but Walker anticipated this. The device automatically initiates a brute force attack disguised as a system diagnostic, cycling through likely password combinations based on patterns observed in Berger's digital footprint. 30 seconds later, I'm in. The bank's interface is elegant, minimal, designed for clarity and efficiency. I navigate quickly to the file directory Walker identified as most likely to contain transaction records, finding a folder labeled Artemis Protocols. Inside are documents detailing the entire operation, transfer authorizations, account structures, client codes. I begin copying files to the device, watching the progress bar with one eye while keeping the other on the door. Each second stretches, the quiet hum of the terminal's cooling fan suddenly loud as a jet engine to my heightened senses. Footsteps approach in the hallway. I quickly minimize the file transfer window and pull up the bank's marketing materials as the door begins to open. But it's Anna, not Berger. "He's reviewing the documents in his office," she whispers, closing the door behind her. You have maybe 3 minutes. Did you find it? Working on it. I restore the file transfer window, 47% complete. I need the Phoenix files. Walker says they'll contain the master plan. Anna moves to the terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard with the efficiency of someone who knows exactly where to look. They're in a hidden directory. Berger keeps them separate from the main operation files. She navigates through several password-protected screens, each time entering credentials without hesitation. The screen fills with new documents, operational timelines, fund destinations, contingency protocols. There, she points to a file labeled P Final Implementation. That's the complete plan. And this, she opens another file showing a list of names, is the full conspirator list. 5 primary operatives, 12 secondary facilitators across 3 continents. I add both to the transfer queue, watching the progress tick upward agonizingly slowly. 63%. 64%. Anna glances nervously at the door. He won't stay occupied long. The Singapore transfer is legitimate, but not as urgent as I implied. You're taking an enormous risk, I observe, watching her closely. Despite her obvious fear, she shows remarkable composure. So are you. She produces a small flash drive from her pocket. This contains my resignation letter and evidence of my cooperation with authorities. I've already booked a train to Vienna, leaving in 2 hours. Smart woman. She's protecting herself regardless of how this plays out. The file transfer reaches 85% when the unmistakable sound of Berger's voice comes from the hallway, accompanied by another male voice. Security, based on the tone. Check all visitor logs against the watch list, Berger is saying. The alert from Muller & Sons mentioned potential corporate espionage. Anna's eyes widen. They're implementing security protocols. You need to finish now. 92%, 93%. The final files are larger, transferring more slowly. Give me a diversion, I say, not looking up from the screen. Without hesitation, Anna moves to the room's house phone and dials an internal extension. Security desk? This is Anna Muller from Mr. Berger's office. We have an alert on the east entrance. Yes, unauthorized access attempt. Mr. Berger requested immediate response. The footsteps outside our door quicken, moving away. 97%. 98%. They'll check the logs and realize no alert was issued, Anna says, voice tight. We have maybe 2 minutes before they return. 100%. Transfer complete. I remove the device, close all windows, and restore the terminal to its original state. Go, I tell Anna. Separate from me now. I was never here. She nods once, professional mask back in place, and exits the room. I count to 20, then follow, turning not toward the main entrance where security will be checking credentials, but toward a side hallway Anna indicated during our planning session. Staff access to the administrative wing. The hallway leads to an employee break room, currently empty during midday operations. Beyond that, a service corridor connects to the building's loading dock. I move quickly, confidently, the body language of someone who belongs. I'm through the service exit and into the alley behind the bank when I hear the first alarm. Subtle, not the blaring klaxon of Hollywood heists, but a gentle chime that will alert security to elevated protocols. I don't run, don't look back. Running attracts attention. Instead, I walk briskly to the end of the alley, turn onto a busy shopping street, and blend with tourists and locals enjoying the midday sun. 3 blocks away, I pause at a cafe terrace, order an espresso I don't want, and check the device. The files are intact, complete documentation of Project Artemis, including the full conspiracy network, account destinations, and most importantly, time-stamped authorizations bearing Elena Walker and Klaus Berger's digital signatures. The evidence is irrefutable, detailed, and damning. More than enough for what comes next. Through the crowd, I spot a familiar black Mercedes turning onto the street. Berger's security team moving with purpose. They haven't identified me yet, but they're looking. Time to disappear again. I leave cash for the untouched coffee and move into the stream of pedestrians, the weight of digital evidence secure against my wrist. Anna Miller is on her way to Vienna, her career in Swiss banking finished, but her conscience intact. And I'm headed to meet Walker with everything we need to bring down the entire operation. The game is accelerating toward its endgame, pieces moving faster than even Elena and Berger realize. The Geneva courthouse breathes old money and older justice, marble columns that have witnessed centuries of human deception, holding up a ceiling painted with allegorical figures of truth and consequence. I slip into the back row of the expedited hearing, my testimony not required until later. The gallery is sparse but select. Financial crimes investigators, banking regulators, a few journalists who caught wind of something significant unfolding. Elena Walker sits at the respondents' table, her posture perfect, hair arranged in a conservative style that suggests respectability rather than the calculated deception we've uncovered. When she speaks to her attorney, her profile shows no trace of concern. A woman who still believes she controls the narrative, unaware that her carefully constructed reality is about to collapse. Mark Walker sits opposite, his face composed into the mask of a wronged spouse, seeking only truth. His hands rest flat on the table before him, the slight tremor I noticed earlier gone now that the moment for action has arrived. The Swiss judge, a silver-haired woman with wire-rimmed glasses and an expression that suggests she's heard every possible lie in her 30 years on the bench, calls the proceedings to order with a single tap of her gavel. We continue with the testimony of Mrs. Elena Walker regarding her petition for emergency asset freezing, she states in precise, accented English, the lingua franca of international finance and, apparently, its crimes. Mrs. Walker, please continue. Elena rises, smoothing her charcoal skirt with manicured hands that show not a tremor of doubt. Her voice, when she speaks, carries the practiced composure of someone accustomed to being believed. As I was explaining, Your Honor, my husband's recent financial activities show clear patterns of impropriety, large sums moving through unauthorized channels, security protocols bypassed, accounts established without proper documentation. She gestures to exhibits her lawyer has prepared, transaction records carefully selected and framed to suggest Mark's wrongdoing rather than her own. I sought this emergency hearing not out of malice, but concern. These assets represent our shared financial security, and his reckless actions place them at risk. The performance is masterful, concern rather than accusation, protection rather than greed. If I hadn't spent days documenting her actual activities, I might almost believe her myself. And you became aware of these activities when? The judge asks. Approximately 3 months ago. Elena's expression shifts to practiced regret. I attempted to address my concerns directly with my husband, but he became evasive, secretive. His behavior changed. That's when I began documenting the suspicious transactions. The judge turns to Mark's table. Mr. Walker, your response to these allegations? Mark's attorney, a precisely tailored German named Hoffman, who specializes in financial crimes, rises. Your Honor, we categorically reject Mrs. Walker's characterization of events. In fact, we have substantial evidence that Mrs. Walker herself has been engaged in a sophisticated financial fraud scheme using Mr. Walker's credentials and systems. Elena's mouth tightens almost imperceptibly, the first crack in her composure. Furthermore, Hoffman continues, we have documentation proving Mrs. Walker's petition is not motivated by concern, but is rather a calculated attempt to prevent Mr. Walker from stopping a major financial crime currently in progress. The judge's eyebrows rise slightly. These are significant counter-allegations, counsel. I presume you have evidence? Extensive evidence, Your Honor. Hoffman gestures to Mark, who opens a leather portfolio. With the court's permission, we would like to present this evidence systematically. Proceed, the judge says, her interest clearly piqued. What follows is the methodical dismantling of Elena Walker's deception, piece by carefully documented piece. Mark and his attorney present the evidence we've gathered. Surveillance photos of Elena with Berger, transaction records showing her systematic movement of funds, email exchanges between the conspirators discussing their scheme. Elena maintains her composure through the presentation of the affair evidence, dismissing it with a practiced wave. My personal relationships are irrelevant to these financial matters, Your Honor. Many marriages experience difficulties. But her confidence wavers when Mark's team begins presenting the financial documentation, the shell companies, the parallel transaction systems, the quarantined funds that Elena believed had been successfully diverted. This document, Hoffman says, displaying an email on the courtroom screen, shows Mrs. Walker explicitly discussing the exploitation of Mr. Walker's security systems with her co-conspirators. Note the timestamp, 3 days ago, and the reference to final preparations and contingencies if systems detect anomalies. Elena leans toward her attorney, whispers urgently. Her lawyer rises. Your Honor, these documents were obtained without my client's knowledge or consent. We question their admissibility and authenticity. The judge studies the displayed evidence. The court will determine admissibility. Continue, counsel. Mark himself rises now, moving to the evidence display. His expertise becomes apparent as he walks the court through the technical aspects of the scheme. The security vulnerabilities Elena's team exploited, the authentication protocols they bypassed, the global financial systems they targeted. This was not merely theft from me personally, Your Honor, Mark explains, his voice steady but underlaid with controlled anger. This was a coordinated attack on financial infrastructure that could have affected markets globally. The total targeted amount exceeded 120 million euros, with potential collateral impact many times that figure due to market disruption. Elena's composure finally cracks. She whispers frantically to her lawyer, who appears increasingly uncomfortable with each new piece of evidence. The judge turns to Elena. Mrs. Walker, these allegations go well beyond domestic financial disputes. They suggest criminal conspiracy at an international level. Your Honor, my client maintains that, her lawyer begins, but Elena interrupts. This is a personal vendetta, she says, her voice tighter than before. My husband is using his technical expertise to fabricate evidence against me because our marriage has failed. Mark's response is devastating in its simplicity. He displays a document on the screen, the complete network diagram of Project Artemis, with Elena at its center under her maiden name, Marquez. This operational structure was recovered from Klaus Berger's private banking systems this morning, Mark explains. It details the entire conspiracy, including the roles of all 5 primary operatives and 12 facilitators across 3 continents. The document's metadata shows it was created by Elena Marquez and last modified by Klaus Berger yesterday at 4:17 p.m. A murmur ripples through the gallery. The financial crimes investigators lean forward in their seats. Additionally, Mark continues, relentless now. We have documented 17 separate transfers totaling 23 million euros that Mrs. Walker has already diverted from our joint assets. These funds have been moved through the same network structure being used for the larger operation. The judge studies the diagram carefully, then turns her penetrating gaze to Elena. Mrs. Walker, given the nature of these allegations and the supporting evidence, I am inclined to deny your petition for asset freezing. Furthermore, I believe there are grounds for a criminal investigation. Elena's lawyer rises again. Your Honor, we request time to review and respond to these unexpected allegations. Your Honor, Hoffman interjects, given the time-sensitive nature of the ongoing financial operation, we believe immediate action is necessary. Mr. Berger is currently in this building, meeting with bank regulators on the 3rd floor. We request he be brought before the court immediately. The judge considers this, then nods decisively. This court will take a 30-minute recess. During this time, Mr. Berger will be summoned to appear. Mrs. Walker, you are not to leave the courthouse or communicate with anyone outside this room. She addresses the court officers. Please ensure Mrs. Walker's communications devices are temporarily secured. As the judge rises, the courtroom erupts in controlled chaos. Elena's face has lost its composed mask, revealing the calculation beneath. Her eyes find Mark across the room, and for a moment, something passes between them. Recognition, perhaps, of the intelligence they once admired in each other, now turned to adversarial purposes. I watch Mark as he confers with his attorney, his shoulders straighter than I've seen them since this case began. The victory is not complete, but the momentum has shifted decisively. What Elena designed as a trap, the emergency hearing to freeze Mark's assets, has instead become the forum for her own exposure. A court officer approaches Elena, hand extended for her phone. She surrenders it with visible reluctance, her gaze darting around the room like a cornered predator seeking escape. Her eyes meet mine briefly, widen with recognition, then narrow with hatred. I maintain my neutral expression, the professional observer witnessing the collapse of her schemes. Outside the courtroom windows, late afternoon sun slants across Geneva's precise streets. Somewhere in the building, Klaus Berger is about to receive a summons he never anticipated, and in this room, Elena Walker watches as the carefully constructed facade of her life disintegrates, one documented betrayal at a time. Justice moves slowly, except when it suddenly accelerates. Today, it has found its velocity. The bar at the Beau au Lac serves remorse in crystal glasses, expensive, meticulously crafted, and ultimately empty once consumed. Walker hunches over his second scotch, tie loosened, the day's victory sitting on his shoulders like an ill-fitting coat. The irony isn't lost on me. We're drinking in the same hotel where Elena and Berger planned their operation, now requisitioned by the authorities as a base for untangling their financial web. The twilight outside turns Lake Zurich into hammered silver, beauty indifferent to human betrayal. I slide onto the stool beside Walker, signaling the bartender for whatever he's having. Neither of us speaks immediately. Some victories demand silence before words can find their proper weight. Berger gave up the other conspirators, Walker says finally, not looking up from his glass. Phoenix is a former intelligence operative turned private consultant. Hermes runs logistics for several questionable operations in Eastern Europe. Athena designed security systems for 3 major banks before going private. He rotates his glass, slowly, watching amber liquid climb the crystal sides. They'll all be in custody by morning. Clean sweep, I observe, accepting my drink from the bartender who materializes and vanishes with the discreet efficiency that costs 4 figures per night. Is it? Walker's voice carries the particular flatness of a man whose anger has burned out, leaving only ashes. Elena is under house arrest at our Geneva apartment. Berger's attorneys are already negotiating terms. The money's been frozen, but not recovered. And I'm facing potential charges for the countermeasures I implemented. He takes a measured sip. If this is justice, it's a disappointing vintage. I study his profile, noting the new lines etched around his eyes in just the few days I've known him. Victories in cases like these are rarely clean or complete. The legal system isn't designed for emotional satisfaction, a lesson I've learned through dozens of cases that ended with technical justice, but left hearts unremedied. Justice isn't the same as healing, I tell him, speaking from experience rather than platitude. One happens in courtrooms, the other takes longer. Walker's laugh holds no humor. Philosophical for a PI. Comes with the territory. I specialize in broken trusts and shattered illusions. Gives you perspective. We drink in silence for a moment, the bar around us nearly empty. A pianist plays something melancholy in the corner, notes falling like gentle rain on the polished surfaces. You know what bothers me most? Walker says suddenly. Not the money, not even the betrayal itself. It's that I never saw it coming. I built systems designed to detect the smallest anomalies, to anticipate threats before they materialize. But in my own home, with the person closest to me, he shakes his head. Complete blind spot. That's how it usually works, I reply. We secure what we know is valuable. We don't guard against what we can't imagine losing. I keep replaying it all. 6 years of marriage. When did it turn? When did I become just a means to an end? His fingers tighten around his glass. Was anything real? The question hangs between us. The one that haunts every betrayed spouse I've ever worked for. The need to reinterpret every memory, searching for authenticity among calculated deceptions. In my experience, people like Elena don't start with grand schemes, I say carefully. They make smaller compromises first, cross smaller lines. Then one day, they realize there's no line they won't cross. Walker nods slowly. I was gone too much, focused on work, on systems and codes rather than her, created the perfect environment for resentment to grow. His expression hardens. But that doesn't justify what she did. What they planned would have hurt countless people, market disruptions, pension funds affected, regular people who never did anything to her. No, it doesn't justify it, I agree. But understanding isn't the same as excusing. The twilight deepens outside, the lake's surface now dark as obsidian, reflecting the first evening stars. Inside, the bar's lighting creates pools of warm amber amid growing shadows, a visual metaphor for the clarity and confusion that follow cases like this one. What happens to you now? I ask, after the legal dust settles. Walker considers this, seemingly surprised by the question. I hadn't thought beyond stopping them. He takes another sip. My company wants me back as a security consultant, ironically to help patch the vulnerabilities Elena's team exploited. I'll probably face fines for my counter-hacking, but my attorneys think jail time is unlikely given the circumstances. And personally? His smile is thin, wry. Divorce, obviously. Then, I don't know. Rebuild. Refortify. He glances at me. What about you? Back to Arizona and cheating spouses? Eventually, I have other cases waiting. None quite as internationally significant as yours, though. Lucky you. There's no bite in his words, just weary acknowledgement. Simpler betrayals. No betrayal is simple to the person experiencing it, I remind him. Walker nods, acknowledging the truth in this. His secure phone vibrates on the bar, the screen lighting with his attorney's name. He answers, listens intently, his expression shifting from resignation to surprise, then something approaching genuine amusement. The first I've seen from him. "Thank you for letting me know," he says finally. "Keep me updated." He ends the call, stares at his phone for a moment before pocketing it. "News?" I prompt. "You could say that." Walker takes a deliberate sip of his scotch. "It seems Elena made one final miscalculation. The $23 million she diverted from our joint accounts, she moved it through a foundation we established years ago. A legitimate charitable entity that I haven't actively managed since selling my company. And it appears that yesterday, in my role as the Foundation's executive director, I authorized the immediate disbursement of all available funds to various humanitarian causes, clean water initiatives in Africa, medical research, educational programs in underserved communities." His smile grows more genuine. The Foundation's bylaws, which Elena never bothered to read, specify that disbursements are irreversible once executed. The implications sink in. She can't get the money back. Not a penny. It's been donated, documented, deployed. The $23 million she thought was her escape fund is now building schools and digging wells. Walker raises his glass in a small toast. The transfers were completely legitimate, executed through my proper authority as director with all appropriate documentation, unlike her transfers, which were unauthorized and fraudulent. For the first time since I've met him, Walker looks genuinely satisfied. Not vengeful, not victorious in any harsh sense, but at peace with an outcome that feels like proper justice. "Elena and Berger are effectively penniless," he continues. "Their legal expenses alone will bankrupt them. Meanwhile, thousands of people they've never met will benefit from their greed." I raise my glass to meet his. "Poetic justice." "Something like that." Walker drains his remaining scotch. "I've spent my life building systems to protect people from those who would exploit them. This feels like coming full circle. Outside, darkness has fully claimed the lake, but lights from the far shore create a constellation of human presence against the night. Walker watches them, his expression thoughtful rather than bitter now. "The money never mattered to me," he says quietly. What mattered was what it represented: trust, partnership, shared purpose. Elena never understood that. The pianist concludes his melancholy piece, the final notes lingering in the bar's hushed atmosphere. Walker squares his shoulders, a man finding his center after being knocked off balance. "I still face questions from authorities, potential fines, months of legal proceedings," he says, "but knowing that every dollar she stole will help someone who needs it—" He shakes his head, a genuine smile forming. "That's worth more than winning in court." As we sit in companionable silence, I realize I'm witnessing something rarer than legal victory, the beginning of actual healing. Not complete, not painless, but real nonetheless. Walker has found something beyond vengeance or vindication, a reaffirmation of the values Elena betrayed, turned toward constructive purpose. Some cases end with justice. Fewer end with redemption. This one, improbably, may have found both. Zurich's Hauptbahnhof at night is a cathedral to transience. High vaulted ceilings, the murmured prayers of departure announcements, pilgrims moving purposefully toward platforms that promise deliverance to somewhere else. I stand near a newspaper kiosk, collar turned up against the night chill, watching Elena Walker make her final desperate play. She shed her courtroom armor, conservative suit replaced by nondescript traveling clothes, hair tucked under a scarf, oversized sunglasses despite the late hour. The electronic monitoring device that should be on her ankle is conspicuously absent. House arrest, it seems, couldn't contain the woman who nearly brought down banking systems across 3 continents. She paces beside Platform 7, phone pressed to her ear, voice too low to hear, but body language screaming desperation. The last train to Milan departs in 17 minutes. She won't be on it. Walker asked me to observe, not interfere. His sources in law enforcement confirmed Elena had somehow disabled her monitor an hour ago. Rather than immediately apprehending her, they decided to track her movements, hoping she might lead them to remaining accomplices or hidden assets. I'm merely additional insurance, ensuring nothing is missed. Elena's pacing intensifies, her free hand clutching the strap of a leather overnight bag. Her only luggage. Even in flight, she maintains the discipline of traveling light. When she turns in my direction, I casually examine the newspaper headlines, though her attention is too consumed by her phone conversation to notice me or anyone else watching. I edge closer, positioning myself within earshot while maintaining my anonymous posture of a tired traveler waiting for a connection. Doesn't matter now, Elena is saying, her voice tight with controlled panic. The secondary accounts should still be accessible. The Singapore transfers weren't flagged. She listens, face hardening. Don't tell me what's impossible. We planned for contingencies. Another pause as the unseen party responds. Based on the timing and context, it's likely one of the lower-level facilitators in their network, someone not yet apprehended but unwilling to risk further involvement. 200,000 is enough to disappear with, she continues, desperation bleeding through her composed facade. The Milan connection, then the private charter from Malpensa, the documents are still valid. Her knuckles whiten around the phone. I don't care what you've heard about burger talking. This route is clean. The station's ambient noise swells with the arrival of a late commuter train, disgorging weary office workers and evening revelers. Elena tenses at the increased activity, eyes darting behind her oversized sunglasses, scanning faces and uniforms with the heightened awareness of prey-sensing predators. She's impressive even in defeat. Calculating, resourceful, still seeking angles while her world collapses around her. In another context, these qualities might be admirable. Redirected toward legitimate ends, Elena Walker could have been a formidable force for positive change. Instead, she channeled her considerable intelligence toward exploitation, viewing systems and people alike as puzzles to be solved and utilized. Fine, she says into the phone, her voice taking on a brittle edge. I'll handle it myself. I always have. She ends the call, slipping the phone into her pocket with a controlled movement that betrays her tension only in its excessive precision. The departure board updates with a soft electronic flutter. Milan. Platform 7 departing 23:17. 16 minutes remaining. Elena checks her watch, an understated timepiece that probably costs more than my monthly rent, then scans the platform again before moving toward the ticket kiosks. She purchases her fare using cash, another precaution against electronic tracking. What she doesn't notice, or chooses to ignore, are the subtle signs of surveillance closing around her. The maintenance worker whose attention to the same section of flooring has lasted too long. The couple whose intimate conversation never progresses beyond the same repeated gestures. The security guard whose patrol pattern has circled her position 3 times in 10 minutes. Swiss efficiency extends to its law enforcement. They won't move until the optimal moment, when Elena has committed fully to her escape attempt, but before she can actually board the train. Maximum evidence, minimum risk. Elena returns from the kiosk, ticket in hand, and takes a seat on a bench with clear sightlines to both the platform entrance and the tracks. Her posture suggests relaxed waiting, but her fingers tap an irregular rhythm against her bag, counting seconds, perhaps, or working through contingencies. The first passengers begin queuing for the Milan train, mostly business travelers and a few tourists. Elena remains seated, eyes constantly moving behind her sunglasses. She's waiting until the last possible moment to join the queue, minimizing her exposure time, the tactic of someone who understands surveillance and counter-surveillance measures. With 7 minutes until departure, she finally rises, adjusting her scarf to better conceal her face. She takes 3 steps toward the forming queue, then freezes, her body suddenly alert. Something has triggered her internal warning system. Perhaps the too coordinated movement of plainclothes officers beginning to converge, or simply the primitive instinct that recognizes when a trap is closing. Whatever she senses, it spurs her to sudden action. Abandoning the queue, she pivots sharply, moving not toward the main station exit, but toward a service corridor partially hidden behind a retail kiosk. It's a desperate play, likely leading only to staff areas with limited exit options, but desperation has replaced calculation in her hierarchy of decision-making. She makes it 3 steps into the corridor before the first officer intercepts her, a woman in civilian clothes who smoothly steps from a doorway, blocking the passage. Elena turns to retreat, finding 2 male officers now positioned at the corridor entrance. Her head swivels, seeking alternatives, finding none. "Mrs. Walker," the female officer says in accented English, not reaching for her, but positioning herself to prevent movement. "Please come with us." Elena's hand tightens on her bag. For a moment, something dangerous flashes across her face, the cornered predator considering a final, futile attack. Then, just as quickly, it's gone, replaced by the cold calculation that has characterized her throughout. "I presume you have proper authorization," she says, voice steady despite her situation. A woman still trying to control the uncontrollable through procedure and technicality. "Full judicial authorization," the officer confirms, producing a document. "You disabled a court-ordered monitoring device and violated the terms of your house arrest. You will be remanded to secure detention pending trial." More officers materialize, creating a loose formation around Elena. One reaches for her bag, which she surrenders without resistance. Another produces restraints, which Elena eyes with distaste, but extends her wrists to receive. Her face remains impressively composed, a mask of dignity covering what must be devastating disappointment. The Milano train announces final boarding. Elena's eyes flick toward it briefly, the only acknowledgement of her thwarted escape. As the officers begin escorting her toward the station's administrative offices, I notice her scanning the concourse one final time. Perhaps seeking Confederates, perhaps merely imprinting the image of freedom before it's replaced by confinement. Her gaze passes over me without recognition or interest. To her, I'm just another anonymous traveler, irrelevant to her calculations. She doesn't know I've helped dismantle her operation, doesn't realize I'm here to witness her final failure. The anonymity that is my professional necessity becomes, in this moment, my perfect vantage point. The small procession moves through the station, drawing curious glances, but little sustained attention. Most travelers are too focused on their own journeys to properly register the drama unfolding beside them. Elena walks with her head high, flanked by officers who maintain professional detachment. No unnecessary force, no public humiliation, just the quiet, efficient application of justice. As they disappear through doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only," I remain in place, watching the Milano train depart without her. The platform empties quickly, travelers dispersing like a shoal of fish, leaving behind only cleaning staff and the lingering sense of interrupted purpose. I send a text to Walker confirming the detention, then pocket my phone. Elena Walker's journey ends not with the dramatic flourish her elaborate schemes might have suggested, but with the quiet anticlimax of bureaucratic process. No tearful breakdown, no desperate final gambit, just silent dignity as the machinery of justice closes around her. Perhaps that's fitting. The financial systems she sought to manipulate also operate largely unseen, their power revealed only in moments of disruption or failure. Elena understood those systems well enough to nearly exploit them catastrophically. Now she'll experience a different system, equally methodical, equally impersonal, from within its constraints rather than testing its boundaries. The station announcer calls the next departure. Life continues, uninterrupted by the small drama of justice served. I turn toward the exit, my role in this particular chapter complete. Midnight in Zurich's banking district feels like walking through the skeleton of wealth, all structure, no flesh. Rain falls in a gentle, persistent rhythm that turns streets into black mirrors and softens the hard edges of financial fortresses. I move without hurry, hands deep in my pockets, letting the water soak through my coat. After cases like this one, I need this ritual, this solitary communion with empty streets and my own unquiet thoughts. The banks stand dark, except for security lighting that casts ghostly blue glows across marble lobbies where billions move with keystrokes during daylight hours. Behind those silent facades, the evidence we gathered is already disrupting carefully constructed lives. Elena in detention, Birger facing extradition hearings, 3 other primary conspirators scattered across Europe, awakened by knocks at their doors. Justice, or something approximating it, has been served. Yet, as I pass the gleaming headquarters of institutions older than my country, I wonder if anything has really changed in the systems they sought to exploit. Water traces paths down my neck, cold fingers that match my mood. The case is technically closed, the conspiracy unraveled, the principles identified, the mechanisms of legal consequence engaged. I should feel the satisfaction of professional accomplishment. Instead, I feel the familiar hollow space that follows cases where the resolution brings no real repair to what was broken. My shoes make soft splashing sounds on cobblestones that have witnessed centuries of ambition and avarice. Zurich at midnight reveals the architecture of money stripped of its human pretense. No busy bankers, no wealthy clients, no elaborate performances of prosperity and propriety. Just stone and glass and water, the eternal elements that outlast all human schemes. I pass the understated entrance of Birger Private Banking, now sealed with police notices in 3 languages. Behind those doors, Anna Mueller made her fateful choice, deciding that conscience outweighed career and security. I wonder where she is tonight. On a train to Vienna, perhaps, her future uncertain but her integrity intact. Small acts of courage in systems designed to discourage them. The investigation replays in my mind Elena's careful deceptions, Birger's polished arrogance, the elaborate architecture of their financial scheme. What strikes me now is not their criminality, but their fundamental misunderstanding of value. They saw Walker's life work as merely a tool for exploitation rather than a creation with purpose. They reduced trust to a vulnerability rather than recognizing it as the essential foundation that makes systems work in the first place. My path takes me past the Helvetica Wellness Institute, the elegant fraud that served as Elena's alibi and operational base. Its windows are dark now, its reputation irrevocably tarnished. How many other facades in this city conceal similar deceptions? The thought isn't cynical so much as realistic. My career has taught me that surfaces rarely reveal underlying realities, whether in architecture, institutions, or human relationships. I turn onto Bahnhofstrasse, the pulsing artery of Zurich's wealth, now emptied of its daytime flow. Designer boutiques stand guard over merchandise worth more than many people earn in years, their displays lit to entice, even in the middle of the night. Elena Walker would have walked this street with the confident stride of someone who belonged among these temples of consumption. Now she sits in a detention cell, her confidence finally meeting its match in consequence. Rain collects on my eyelashes, blurring the streetlights into haloed abstractions. I blink it away, my thoughts turning to Mark Walker. His transformation during this case was perhaps its most remarkable aspect, from betrayed husband to technological avenger to something more nuanced in the end. The man I left at the hotel bar earlier tonight was neither broken nor triumphant, but reflective. His decision to redirect the stolen funds toward humanitarian causes spoke of something beyond mere vindication. "I've spent my life building systems to protect people from those who would exploit them," he told me. "This feels like coming full circle." There's wisdom in that I'm still parsing, the recognition that protection and purpose remain possible even after betrayal. Walker lost a marriage, but reclaimed his life's meaning. Not many clients find their way to that particular clearing in the forest of deception I typically navigate with them. Justice. The word follows me through the rain-slicked streets, persistent as a shadow. What does it really mean in a case like this? The legal system will process Elena, Berger, and their confederates. Charges will be filed, pleas entered, sentences eventually handed down. Assets will be frozen, fines levied, restitution ordered. The machinery of consequence will grind forward with Swiss precision. But will that constitute justice? For Walker, perhaps. His name cleared, his systems vindicated, his stolen funds repurposed toward good. For the financial systems targeted, certainly, vulnerability exposed but catastrophe averted. For society at large, maybe, another cautionary tale of ambition unmoored from ethics. For Elena, though, justice seems more complex. Not because she deserves leniency, she doesn't, but because her punishment addresses only outcomes, not origins. What transforms a person from ambitious to predatory? What corrupts potential into exploitation? The legal system isn't designed to answer such questions, yet they seem essential to any meaningful concept of justice. I stop before the illuminated window of a private investment firm, its lobby a showcase of understated luxury. In the glass, my reflection appears, rain-soaked, solitary, a man walking midnight streets in contemplation of questions without clean answers. Behind my reflection, visible through the window, hang portraits of the firm's founders, serious men in serious suits who established the rules of a game that rewards certain kinds of cleverness while punishing others. Elena and Berger didn't invent financial exploitation. They merely attempted a particularly ambitious version of what happens in more subtle forms every day, often with full legal blessing. The difference is scale and methodology, not fundamental nature. This thought doesn't excuse their actions, but contextualizes them within systems that often blur the lines between innovation and exploitation, between acceptable practice and criminal overreach. My reflection stares back at me, water dripping from my hat brim, eyes shadowed with the particular fatigue that comes from seeing too clearly the spaces between what is legal, what is just, and what is right. In my years as a detective and then as a private investigator, I've worked within these spaces, navigating their contradictions and ambiguities. Sometimes, like in this case, the lines briefly align. What's illegal is also unjust and wrong. But such clarity is rarer than we pretend. A clock tower somewhere in the old town strikes the half-hour, its sound muffled by rain and distance. The banks around me hold billions in accounts whose origins range from impeccable to questionable, all processed through the same systems, all generating the same profits for institutions that rarely question sources when the paperwork is in order. Elena and Berger sought to exploit these systems' vulnerabilities. Walker built technology. Midnight in Zurich's banking district feels like walking through the skeleton of wealth. All structure, no flesh. Rain falls in a gentle, persistent rhythm that turns streets into black mirrors and softens the hard edges of financial fortresses. I move without hurry, hands deep in my pockets, letting the water soak through my coat. After cases like this one, I need this ritual. This solitary communion with empty streets and my own unquiet thoughts. The banks stand dark except for security lighting that casts ghostly blue glows across marble lobbies where billions move with keystrokes during daylight hours. Behind those silent facades, the evidence we gathered is already disrupting carefully constructed lives. Elena in detention. Berger facing extradition hearings. 3 other primary conspirators scattered across Europe, awakened by knocks at their doors. Justice, or something approximating it, has been served. Yet, as I pass the gleaming headquarters of institutions older than my country, I wonder if anything has really changed in the systems they sought to exploit. Water traces paths down my neck, cold fingers that match my mood. The case is technically closed, the conspiracy unraveled, the principles identified, the mechanisms of legal consequence engaged. I should feel the satisfaction of professional accomplishment. Instead, I feel the familiar hollow space that follows cases where the resolution brings no real repair to what was broken. My shoes make soft splashing sounds on cobblestones that have witnessed centuries of ambition and avarice. Zurich at midnight reveals the architecture of money stripped of its human pretense. No busy bankers, no wealthy clients, no elaborate performances of prosperity and propriety. Just stone and glass and water, the eternal elements that outlast all human schemes. I pass the understated entrance of Berger Private Banking, now sealed with police notices in 3 languages. Behind those doors, Anna Muller made her fateful choice, deciding that conscience outweighed career and security. I wonder where she is tonight. On a train to Vienna, perhaps, her future uncertain, but her integrity intact. Small acts of courage in systems designed to discourage them. The investigation replays in my mind. Elena's careful deceptions, Berger's polished arrogance, the elaborate architecture of their financial scheme. What strikes me now is not their criminality, but their fundamental misunderstanding of value. They saw Walker's life work as merely a tool for exploitation rather than a creation with purpose. They reduced trust to a vulnerability rather than recognizing it as the essential foundation that makes systems work in the first place. My path takes me past the Helvetica Wellness Institute, the elegant fraud that served as Elena's alibi and operational base. Its windows are dark now, its reputation irrevocably tarnished. How many other facades in this city conceal similar deceptions? The thought isn't cynical so much as realistic. My career has taught me that surfaces rarely reveal underlying realities, whether in architecture, institutions, or human relationships. I turn onto Bahnhofstrasse, the pulsing artery of Zurich's wealth, now emptied of its daytime flow. Designer boutiques stand guard over merchandise worth more than many people earn in years, their displays lit to entice even in the middle of the night. Elena Walker would have walked this street with the confident stride of someone who belonged among these temples of consumption. Now she sits in a detention cell, her confidence finally meeting its match in consequence. Rain collects on my eyelashes, blurring the streetlights into haloed abstractions. I blink it away, my thoughts turning to Mark Walker. His transformation during this case was perhaps its most remarkable aspect, from betrayed husband to technological avenger to something more nuanced in the end. The man I left at the hotel bar earlier tonight was neither broken nor triumphant, but reflective. His decision to redirect the stolen funds toward humanitarian causes spoke of something beyond mere vindication. "I've spent my life building systems to protect people from those who would exploit them," he told me. "This feels like coming full circle." There's wisdom in that I'm still parsing. The recognition that protection and purpose remain possible even after betrayal. Walker lost a marriage, but reclaimed his life's meaning. Not many clients find their way to that particular clearing in the forest of deception I typically navigate with them. Justice. The word follows me through the rain-slicked streets, persistent as a shadow. What does it really mean in a case like this? The legal system will process Elena, Berger, and their confederates. Charges will be filed, pleas entered, sentences eventually handed down, assets will be frozen, fines levied, restitution ordered. The machinery of consequence will grind forward with Swiss precision. But will that constitute justice? For Walker, perhaps, his name cleared, his systems vindicated, his stolen funds repurposed toward good. For the financial systems targeted, certainly, vulnerability exposed, but catastrophe averted. For society at large, maybe, another cautionary tale of ambition unmoored from ethics. For Elena, though, justice seems more complex. Not because she deserves leniency, she doesn't, but because her punishment addresses only outcomes, not origins. What transforms a person from ambitious to predatory? What corrupts potential into exploitation? The legal system isn't designed to answer such questions, yet they seem essential to any meaningful concept of justice. I stop before the illuminated window of a private investment firm, its lobby a showcase of understated luxury. In the glass, my reflection appears. Rain-soaked, solitary, a man walking midnight streets in contemplation of questions without clean answers. Behind my reflection, visible through the window, hang portraits of the firm's founders. Serious men in serious suits who established the rules of a game that rewards certain kinds of cleverness while punishing others. Elena and Berger didn't invent financial exploitation. They merely attempted a particularly ambitious version of what happens in more subtle forms every day, often with full legal blessing. The difference is scale and methodology, not fundamental nature. This thought doesn't excuse their actions, but contextualizes them within systems that often blur the lines between innovation and exploitation, between acceptable practice and criminal overreach. My reflection stares back at me, water dripping from my hat brim, eyes shadowed with the particular fatigue that comes from seeing too clearly the spaces between what is legal, what is just, and what is right. In my years as a detective and then as a private investigator, I've worked within these spaces, navigating their contradictions and ambiguities. Sometimes, like in this case, the lines briefly align. What's illegal is also unjust and wrong, but such clarity is rarer than we pretend. A clock tower somewhere in the old town strikes the half-hour, its sound muffled by rain and distance. The banks around me hold billions in accounts whose origins range from impeccable to questionable, all processed through the same systems, all generating the same profits for institutions that rarely question sources when the paperwork is in order. Elena and Berger sought to exploit these systems' vulnerabilities. Walker built technology to protect them. Both operated from opposite sides of the same fundamental reality, that global finance runs on trust maintained by the thinnest veneer of security. I place my palm against the cold glass, creating a momentary print that rain quickly erases. My reflection fragments around my hand, breaking into pieces that reassemble as I withdraw. Perhaps that's as close to an answer as I'll find tonight. That justice, like reflections, is fragmented and imperfect, visible from some angles and distorted from others. I turn away from the window and continue my solitary walk through Zurich's financial heart. The rain has softened to a fine mist that hangs in the air like suspended time. Tomorrow will bring sunshine, reopened banks, the resumption of business as usual. The machinery of money will continue its perpetual motion, perhaps slightly more secure for having weathered this particular assault, but fundamentally unchanged. And perhaps that's the most sobering realization of this midnight contemplation, that all our efforts, all the evidence gathered and conspirators captured, amounts to maintenance rather than transformation. We've preserved a system rather than improved it, prevented exploitation rather than addressing what makes it possible. Is that justice? I don't know. But as I turn toward my hotel, leaving the empty avenues of wealth behind, I suspect it's the closest approximation available in a world where truth, like rain-slicked streets, reflects both light and shadow in equal measure. Dawn at Zurich Airport paints the eastern sky in watercolors, pale blues bleeding into coral and gold, the mountains etched in silhouette against the awakening light. I claim a seat facing both the windows and the gate entrance, old habits from a career spent watching people who might not want to be watched. My flight doesn't board for another hour, giving me time to organize the chaos of the past week into something resembling an orderly case file. My notebook lies open on my lap, pages dense with observations, conversations, connections, mapped in my particular shorthand. The facts are clear enough. Conspiracy uncovered, perpetrators identified, legal machinery engaged. But facts alone never tell the whole story. Between the lines of my notes lie the human complexities that no case file can fully capture. Ambition corrupted, trust betrayed, justice imperfectly served. The airport comes to life around me. Early travelers with briefcases and purposeful strides, baristas arranging pastries behind glass, security personnel scanning the growing crowd with professional disinterest. I sort through photographs, receipts, transcribed conversations, arranging them chronologically. The case began with suspicious medical bills and ended with international financial crime. Between those points lies a narrative of remarkable calculation and equally remarkable human blindness. My phone vibrates with a message from Walker's attorney. Elena's detention has been extended pending formal charges. Berger is cooperating with authorities, offering information in exchange for consideration. The three other primary conspirators, Phoenix, Hermes, and Athena, are in custody in their respective countries. The immediate danger has passed. The financial systems targeted remain secure. Case closed, technically speaking. Another entry in my professional ledger, more complex than most, but ultimately resolved. Yet something nags at me. Some thread left dangling that my instincts won't let me ignore. I flip back through my notes to the diagram of the conspiracy network, the complete organizational chart we recovered from Berger's systems. 5 primary operatives, 12 secondary facilitators, all identified, most in custody, but there were financial connections that extended beyond this immediate network. Transactions that hinted at a larger structure, pieces of a puzzle whose full dimensions remain unclear. Anna Mueller mentioned it during our cafe meeting. "Whatever you think this is, Mr. Hunt, it's bigger." At the time, I thought she meant the scale of the financial operation itself. Now I wonder if she glimpsed something more, not just the extent of the scheme, but its context within some larger framework. My phone rings. Walker's name on the screen. Hunt. His voice sounds steadier than the last time we spoke, a man finding his footing after an earthquake. You're leaving today? Flight board's in an hour, I confirm, watching a family with matching luggage navigate the security checkpoint. Any developments? Several. The authorities have frozen accounts totaling nearly 80 million euros connected to the operation. They've also identified 3 additional conspirators based on the evidence we provided. Standard cleanup operation. Nothing surprising there. Good news. There's something else. Walker's tone shifts slightly. Berger is talking, as expected, trying to save himself. But what he's revealing goes beyond Elena and their immediate circle. He's describing what appears to be a larger network of financial manipulation, operations similar to what they attempted, but successfully executed over the past 3 years. This catches my attention. Connected to your wife? No, that's what's interesting. Elena and Berger were apparently recruited specifically for this operation because of my connections and systems access. They weren't originators, but instruments. Ambitious, greedy instruments who saw opportunity, but not the architects. I flip to a fresh page in my notebook. Architects being? Unclear. Berger claims limited knowledge, says he dealt primarily with a handler who used the code name Midas. No direct contact with whoever was ultimately directing the operation. Convenient, I observe. Could be self-preservation. Possibly. Walker pauses. But the financial intelligence units are taking it seriously. The transaction patterns we identified match several previous system intrusions that were never fully explained. They're reopening those cases based on our evidence. I make notes, connecting this new information with my earlier misgivings. So, Elena and Berger were potentially test cases, newer recruits attempting a larger operation with existing methodology. That's the working theory. If true, it suggests whoever is behind this has been exploiting financial infrastructure vulnerabilities systematically. Our case may have just exposed the tip of something much larger. The implications sink in. What we uncovered wasn't an isolated conspiracy, but potentially part of an ongoing operation targeting global financial systems. Elena and Berger weren't masterminds, but middle management, ambitious executors rather than ultimate architects. The authorities want to speak with you again before you leave, Walker continues. Reichman specifically. He's interested in your observations of Elena and Berger's behaviors, communication patterns, anything that might help identify their connections to this larger network. I check my watch. I can delay my flight. I thought you might say that. There's a hint of satisfaction in Walker's voice. He'll meet you at the airport security office in 20 minutes. As we end the call, I gather my materials, considering the implications. The satisfaction of case closure dissolves, replaced by the familiar tension of investigation reopening, expanding beyond its initial boundaries. The departures board updates, flights changing status in digital precision. Passengers move in predictable patterns. The nervous ones checking documents repeatedly, the experienced travelers gliding through with practiced indifference, the families negotiating the complex choreography of keeping children and luggage together. Among them, a man in a charcoal overcoat catches my attention, not because he's doing anything suspicious, but because of his studied ordinariness. He reads a newspaper with too much concentration, positioned where he can observe multiple gates without being obvious. Something in his posture reminds me of the men who followed me through Zurich's old town streets days ago. Coincidence, perhaps, or professional paranoia honed by years of surveillance and counter-surveillance. Either way, I make a mental note of his features, his positioning, the way his attention never quite settles on what he pretends to be reading. I gather my materials and stand, case file tucked securely under my arm. If there is indeed a larger network operating behind Elena and Berger's conspiracy, they would naturally be monitoring the aftermath, assessing damage, identifying threats to their continued operations, in which case my involvement with Walker and the authorities wouldn't have gone unnoticed. The thought should be unsettling, but instead it triggers the familiar focus that difficult cases demand. A narrowing of attention, a heightening of observational clarity. If I'm being watched, it confirms there's more to uncover, more threads to pull, more connections to trace. My gate announces pre-boarding as I walk away, headed toward the security office where Reichman waits. Behind me, Zurich awakens to another day of wealth management and precision banking, its systems humming with transactions that connect lives across continents. Somewhere within those systems, according to Berger, operates a network sophisticated enough to exploit vulnerabilities that most people don't even know exist. I pause at a window overlooking the tarmac, where morning sun gleams on aircraft being readied for departure. Beyond them, Zurich spreads toward the mountains, its orderly streets and precise architecture a testament to Switzerland's legendary stability. Yet, within that apparent order, we've uncovered extraordinary deception. Elena and Berger will face justice for their crimes. The immediate threat has been neutralized, the specific vulnerability protected. But the larger questions remain. Who recruited them? Who designed the methodology they employed? Who benefits ultimately from these systematic exploitations of financial infrastructure? Walker's systems detected this attempt and helped prevent catastrophe. But what about the next attempt? Using different methods, different vulnerabilities, different ambitious instruments like Elena? I turn from the window, continuing toward my meeting with Reichman. My reflection in the glass shows a man with the focused expression of someone transitioning from one phase of investigation to another, from immediate threat response to deeper inquiry. My flight home will wait. The case file in my hands documents what we've discovered, but instinct tells me it's only a single chapter in a larger story. Whoever was behind Elena and Berger remains unidentified, likely already recruiting replacements, adapting methods, preparing for another opportunity. As I reach the security office door, I glance back at the departures area one last time. The man in the charcoal coat has vanished, leaving only the lingering certainty that I was indeed being observed. I straighten my shoulders and enter the office where Reichman waits with his questions. The thought forms clearly as the door closes behind me. My work here isn't finished. The next chapter is only beginning.